What's up, everyone? Tonight we're live with Matt with Sasobek Reptiles, and we got Dave Levinson as the co-host from Custom Scales. How are you guys doing tonight? Dave Levinson is the co-host. So, for the people that don't know you, Matt, what's like a good elevator pitch of yourself and your business?
Oh, I hate doing this kind of thing. Basically, I've been working on reptiles in the private sector for probably close to 20 years at this point. Probably most well known for leopard geckos, but definitely not all that I do, I guess. I'm ex-military. I was a vet tech for the military for 4 years, which was pretty cool. Also was a vet tech in the private sector. I've worked at AZA accredited zoos. Done a lot of cool stuff in my life, and now just back at living the dream and breeding reptiles full time and working at a zoo part time. So yeah, pretty fun.
Did the vet tech in the military, what'd you think of that?
It actually wasn't bad. It was a cool experience. Got to blow up a tank, so that's always cool.
Yeah.
Got to shoot a rocket launcher. But yeah, it was cool. Definitely the military working dogs are super awesome. It was cool to work with, providing veterinary care for them. And basically we ran a veterinary clinic on a base in Connecticut and provided like low cost veterinary services for like military members and their pets. Well, military member pets, not really them, because that would be kind of weird if you're just working on, the owner too. So
yeah. So from there, you kind of switch to the personal sector. How long have you been breeding leopard geckos? Is that like 20 years then?
Yeah, it probably started professionally around 2006, I would say, where it became more of a business. I took probably 4 years off in those 20 years. At one point, just kind of got burnt out and had some life stuff going on. And then rates during like the COVID time frame, there was somebody that interviewed me about, leopard geckos. And then that turned into like a 10-part series. And then I was like, maybe I should get back into doing this. And then from there, I've been probably back breeding for about 5 years now. 5-6 years.
So, and with that, do you think leopard gecko progress is more genetic now, selective line breeding? What are you more focusing on?
For me, it's selective line breeding. As far as the genetic stuff goes and combinations, like I feel like I've done everything that there was to do with that. And at the end of the day, you just start getting all white animals with red eyes whenever you start mixing everything. It's kind of like ball pythons where like, you mix too much stuff and you just end up with a white snake. So that kind of stuff, like I made certain stuff just to make it. And then once I made it, it was kind of like, all right, like kind of scrap that project. And a lot of the stuff that I work on now is very selectively bred, like lines of things. Basically it's this male and basically making a bunch of offshoots of him taken in different directions, like more orange, crossing with black knight, crossing it with a bunch of different stuff just to create probably about 16 different individual lines off of one line.
Oh, and what I've noticed on some of them, you got some very vibrant oranges and reds that I'm going to pull up now that, really are eye-catching, that I could see why you like them.
Yeah, they're definitely super cool to work with just because just like ball pythons, like there's so many different routes you can go with them and color variations and patterns, and like the genetic component of these guys is super cool. And then, they're pretty easy. They're pretty hardy. You can definitely have multiple generations pretty quickly. I mean, they breed pretty much at 9 months of age, and you can, have a different generation every single year, which is nice. it definitely advances projects a lot quicker than a lot of other species, for sure.
Is there any downside breeding them that young?
Not really. I mean, a lot of people are like, you get the Facebook group people that are like, oh, you got to wait till they're 2 or 3 years old. And it's just like, no, like they're already full grown at a year if you're doing it correctly. So I don't really wait. Basically, I've found over the years, and I mean, I've produced over 20,000 leopard geckos pretty easily over the course of the 20 years that I've been doing it. And I see more issues with females like becoming egg bound if they weren't bred, because the infertile eggs are actually harder for them to push out than a fertile egg. So even if the female's a little bit smaller, I don't mind, breeding her just to make sure that like she passes a good egg instead of an infertile egg. I mean, the goal is like to get them up to size by like January, February timeframe, because like they start ovulating around that time. So I mean, you can put it off like a month or two into like March, April, but by that point, like they're ready to go. Like, so, you get most of them born, I would say between like May and July. So you can get them up to size pretty much within like 6 to 9 months for females, and probably a little bit quicker for males actually.
When you're trying to put size on them like that, are you having to do like crickets and mealworms, or can you do like a lopsided diet with mainly mealworms?
No, I just feed mealworms. I think crickets are just super dirty. They're loud. They're a pain in the ass. I mean, if the animal doesn't eat them, you have to worry about like them nibbling on the gecko, stuff like that. So like with as big as like my breeding projects are and my breeding of leopard geckos, it's just not worth it to do crickets, because then you have to like you got to feed them, and then you got to go back and check, make sure that they're all eaten and all that stuff. It's just easier to do mealworms in a dish, and I find mealworms in a dish are a lot more healthy for them anyway. And I'm also like a big proponent of having fast days as well. So basically what I do is I'll go through, and now that I'm living in Florida, like everything's a little bit different than it was up north, just from a humidity standpoint. So what I'll do is I'll go through, clean everybody, water everything. So I use like a Selecta-size paper towel, fold it twice, put that underneath the styrofoam hide. And that creates like a humid hide for them. Plus they get the moisture. And then usually for the first day, it's a little bit too humid to put the mealworms in and put the vitamin powder on top of the mealworms. So I usually wait about a day to 2 days. And then I go through, feed everybody, put the vitamin supplement on the mealworms as well. And then they usually eat for probably the next like 3 to 4 days. And then they have probably another like 3 to 4 days of fasting. And then they kind of clear themselves out a little bit. And, the whole enclosure dries out. You don't get like a lot of like wet poops at that point because everything's getting dried up and stuff like that. So it's a little bit more sanitary. And then you just go back through and clean them all again. So it's almost like painting the Golden Gate Bridge. Like you never are done. You just kind of keep rotating through the room, just doing, a few racks a day, and then you just get through it. And it's a lot of work, and I do it all myself and wouldn't have it any other way.
Now, before you moved, did you do more dubia roaches at all, or still just
I used to have a collection of dubia roaches, or a little colony of them, just for during the breeding season, throw them to, males that are getting kind of, moved around bins and stuff like that. But down here in Florida, you can't have them, obviously. Like I have a discoid colony, but they don't like the discoids as much. But I mean, they really like the mealworms, and especially like if you've bred an animal in a specific environment, they're really, really used to that, and they're used to everything that's happening. So it's almost like they're selectively bred in a way as well to, to the conditions that are here, if that makes sense. And I try to make them as bulletproof as possible for like whenever they go to other, parts of the country and stuff like that. It's not really like a neglect thing. It's more of like a, like kind of putting them through their paces a little bit in a way. where it's not as strict as like, oh, it pooped, like I gotta take it out and sanitize the whole thing. Like I don't believe in like sanitizing like every single day or anything like that, because they also need to have an immune system as well. So my take on everything is probably a little bit different than, you know, people that only have 4 geckos that can sit there and hand feed every single one of them and clean them every single hour and stuff like that. I think that, you know, they do just fine, you know, with little intervention as well.
You guys want to keep talking about leopard geckos, or should we start talking about skinks?
Let's talk about other cool stuff. Leopard geckos are lame as shit.
I'm going to do the first question. That's okay. So, you know, he told me the size of your collection before we started today on, you know, what you're working with monkey tails.
Yeah.
Did you like prove the concept that you could breed them? You had a couple and then you just started an expansion, or how do you go from the start to finish with your monkey tail group?
Honestly, like I've always loved them. And, you know, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, you could get them a lot easier. And I used to work at a pet store and we had one and it was cool. I mean, it was awesome. I mean, it was mean because like there was only one of them, but I've always wanted them. And whenever they started coming back into the country, I knew it would only be for a short amount of time. And I knew all the ones that were coming in were younger. And if I was going to have any chance of like breeding them, I was going to need to have more of them. So literally for probably 3 to 4 years, anytime I could afford to buy one, I just bought it. And then, you know, as the collection grew, people started seeing how many I had. People that didn't want theirs anymore, like, you know, they wanted them to come live here. I gave them some money for them. And it kind of worked that way even after, you know, the borders kind of got shut down and they stopped coming in for a while. So honestly, like I had quite a few of them before I even had my first baby, and the first baby actually didn't make it. So like I didn't even have, I think I had 2 that were born that didn't make it before I actually even had a baby that made it. So, that part definitely sucked. The first baby definitely died because I was moving from Connecticut to Florida and she was pregnant, and she had the baby about 2 weeks after I was here in Florida. And it had to have been a preemie because it only lived like 2 days. And then I think that just the stress of moving like made her kind of give birth a little bit early. And then, but since then, that same skink, she's had 2 babies since being down here in Florida. So, you know, she's definitely had healthy babies since then. But you know, it's a weird thing where, you know, they have 1 to 2 at a time. I think, there's a record of like somebody having 3, but like that would be extremely rare. Like it's usually 1 at a time. Some big females will have 2. But it's a project of like love. It's not I'm going to make any money off of this ever, because I mean, 1 baby every 18 months isn't, you know, how you can pay the bills. You know what I mean? Like, so it's literally, the collection is just, I really love the species and I want to learn more about them. I think they're super, super interesting. They just, the social structures and, just, they're just cool. Like they're more like primates than reptiles, live in family groups. They're just an amazing species.
Do you think there's a way to turn breeding monkey tails into a business, or is it just one of those things you do for the love of it, like you're saying?
I really believe that it's, you know, that age-old adage of how do you make $1 million breeding ball pythons? You start with 3. That's about what, you know, you're going to be putting way more money into it than you're ever going to get back out of it with monkey tails. Just because, I mean, they do live a long time. And with my access, working at zoos, I've looked at like AZA records of a bunch of, you know, different facilities, and most female monkey tails don't even start breeding until they're at least 7 years of age, but they can keep breeding until they're 45. I mean, there's records of 45-year-olds having babies. So nobody even really knows how long they can live. I mean, I'm thinking 50, 60 years, which is pretty crazy for a lizard. So, and at 1 baby at a time, you know, it's it's just one of those things. You would have to have so many of them to be able to sell them and, you know, do well off of them, I would think.
It's fair.
That, and the hard part too, you'd have to try to keep the cost of keeping them down to a point. You know, you could keep a lot outdoors, and with Florida, you can potentially grow a bit of vegetables and stuff yourself to mitigate costs, but then that takes your time too.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you done like any big groups to try to play with social structures to see like how big you can go? Or
No, because like I've, you know, you guys have had Eric on the show, and he's told stories of having like a 1.10 together and only ever having 2 females actually breed with the male, and I think that's pretty true. So a lot of times, like, you know, some of my best results have been just having a pair together, or maybe, you know, a 1.2. I have a 1.4 and a 1.3 together, but it almost seems like, you know, the male's going to pick one female. And kind of how the social structure works, it's not really the males that are most dominant in a lot of ways. It's almost like the females are. So it's like the females pick who they want to live with. And I've had, you know, groups that have raised the babies together, and all of a sudden we'll just kick one out, like for no reason. And it'll be like, you know, on the other side of the cage and kind of not eating, and kind of, it'll start going downhill for sure. So almost having a collection the size that I do is almost necessary in a lot of ways to like almost like repair things back up with like another skink, because there's definitely truth to the, you know, what they say about if you keep them single for too long, they won't live with another skink ever again. So it's very, very strange. You don't want to pull a baby too early. You want them to live with the parents for at least a year, just so they kind of learn how to be a skink, if you will. And yeah, they're just a very, very weird species. So it's not even like you can have a baby and just sell it within a couple months. Like, you almost want to wait a year to 2 years before you even move it to anywhere else, or you could stress the baby out. Like, I've had groups of babies where I had like, you know, 1.5 2-year-olds, and I tried to put like a really small one in with them, and they just didn't accept it. And I had to put it in with a pair of parents that have been parents before, and literally they adopted it and acted like it was theirs. So it's like really strange dynamics, and you know, they definitely communicate with each other with tongue flicks. They do make like a kind of like a weird noise too. Definitely body language. You know, you can actually see their pupils like dilate like birds, like whenever they're really interested in something. They're just a super, super interesting species that like most people have no clue about.
Is it difficult to introduce adults then, even if they've been around other skinks, to maybe get them to bond together? Is that something you really need to do early on in their life, or how does that work?
I mean, what I've done with a lot of mine is I've raised them together. Try to sex them as early as possible. You can kind of sex them a little bit easier than like a blue tongue, because if you put them on like a flat surface, you can actually see like a hemipenal bulge at the base of the tail, like slightly. It's not very well endowed, for sure. I mean, it's a very, very small. You have to look at a lot of skinks to be able to like be like, okay, that's probably a boy. So, you know, definitely a lot of people like that can't sex them. I mean, you know, they might have 2 males together for years and 2 females, and you know, the old adage is like, you know, males will fight with each other, but with these monkey tails, like that's actually not even true. Like, I've had 2.1s together and they were perfectly fine. Like, it was super strange. And like I said, it's almost like the females have more of a issue with each other than the males do.
have you ever had groups? Because someone I was talking to previously, it might have been like 2 males and 2 females together, and they finally had a baby after, we'll say, 4 years keeping them together. Then they had issues where they would actually fight.
Yeah, I've had I have one female that's separated right now with her baby because like she literally tried to kill everybody else that was in the cage with her. So like because she was just so protective of her baby. And then, I have other groups that, both male and female protect the baby. I've got groups that like, the other skink that didn't even give birth will protect the baby. The one group that I have has 2 adults in it, and then it's got like a 3-year-old, a 2-year-old, a 1-year-old, and then a new baby in it. And like they all kind of take care of each other. I actually think that the 3-year-old was the male that actually like bred the adult female. I don't even think it was the bigger male that actually bred him or bred her. And like you'll see like the baby like kind of like hiding underneath like the 2-year-old and the 3-year-old, just kind of sitting there. It's very strange. Like for a reptile, I mean, it's perfectly normal in mammals, but like for a reptile, it's just super, super strange.
With imports, because that's what we were heavily getting those for so long. Were there issues with them acclimating because of that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there were certain ones. I mean, because they can actually stress out pretty easily for being such like a bigger animal. I think even like they can get depressed. I mean, I saw a female that had a baby that, didn't make it, kind of get depressed afterwards, wouldn't eat, and then finally she bounced back. So, yeah, I think, probably in like getting my collection started and stuff like that, I probably lost like 20%, if not a little bit more, just in the acclimation period and getting everything dialed in and stuff like that. Like, and, some of that might have been my issue. Some of that might have been just, they came in bad. I mean, definitely the shipping of them can really mess them up too, be just from, lack of water for so long. It could, mess with their kidneys, and if it messes with the kidneys, I mean, you might not even see it right away. It might be months down the road that you really see anything bad going on with the animal.
So are they still coming in at all?
No, they've been shut down for probably, it's going to be, I think, 3 years. This Daytona was probably the last time I saw any come in. So it's been quite a while. I mean, they definitely went from, you could probably get one for $250, $300 to now females are $2,000 and males are probably $1,500.
But that's happened with the species a few times over the years based on shutting down and reopening. And is it that they discover on like a different little island and then they start exporting them out of there? Or do they keep on opening up the same one over and over again where they originally are coming from?
No, like from what I heard this last time was, there was some paperwork done to kind of get them here for the first time. And then, like anything else, like people get greedy and start bringing in more than they should. And, it's kind of like how, the tree monitors and the green tree pythons and stuff like that, where, they're farm raised or whatever. And, damn well that they're plucking them out of a tree somewhere. It's probably the same situation. And I think what had kind of happened from what I've heard, which, who knows if any of this is true, is that the guy that was like sending them out of the Solomon Islands, like had a farm, and, he was, one year he sent out like 300 of them and he only had 300 adults at the farm. And it's like, they were like, well, this can't happen, or like 100 adults or something weird like that, where he was shipping out way more than what the animals that he had could produce. And I think that helped shut it down. And I'm pretty sure the Solomon Islands right now is shut down totally just because of like weird airline stuff. You can't get anything out of the Solomon Islands right now, from what I understand.
Well, last thing on the import thing, for the hobby as a whole right now, do you think it would benefit the hobby if across the board we lost all opportunity to bring in new stuff and we have what we have? Or do you think a steady stream of new things coming in is important?
Well, that's such a like loaded question on so many ways. Because like, you know, I do work in a zoo environment, and it's one of those things where it is really unfortunate whenever these imports come in, they're in bad shape, and you know, there's massive die off. But you know, to have anything in captivity, it has to be imported at some point, and not just imported, but enough of them so that you can keep the gene pool big enough to sustain long-term, you know, breeding without too much inbreeding and stuff like that. So it's a very like touchy subject, and I feel like I could go both ways on a lot of it. And I think anymore, like I come at things from not like a financial standpoint, and it's more of like a if it feels right to me or not type of thing anymore, just because I've been doing this so long. And I think we live in a time where there's so much like social media stuff out there and what's hot right now. And people get into things for the wrong reason. They see the dollar signs, and, you know, it kind of sucks in a lot of ways, because it's, you know, these animals are kind of our responsibility to take care of. And it's, you know, it sucks that, you know, you see influencers, I mean, especially even with like invasive stuff down here in Florida, like what they did to the iguanas, like whenever it got cold, like it's kind of shitty. You know what I mean? It takes a special kind of asshole to do that. Like just beating an iguana. Like, it's like, come on, dude. Like, seriously, like, so it's, yeah, I got a lot of mixed feelings. I mean, it's even like, you know, I'm a retired influencer, if you will. And it's like, I did it whenever it was like different, you know what I mean? And now it's almost like one of these weird things where like, I don't even really want to do it. Like, I would love to spread knowledge and stuff like that, but it's almost like it just got too like weird, if that makes sense. And it just didn't feel right anymore. Like, I wish I could go back to just like educating and stuff like that, but then you get people that'll just hate on you for no matter what you do. You know what I mean? Like, I made a post probably a couple months ago, and I knew it was going to piss people off, but it was like, hey, look, you can keep multiple species in the same tank and they're perfectly fine. And got so much lit up so bad for it. And it's like, oh my God, you got multiple species. Like, I can't even keep my two crested geckos together. And it's like it's just stupid. You know what I mean? And then you go to like zoos, and like, that's the thing. Like, they have multi-species exhibits and everything's fine. Like, it's not like, you know, there's different areas of the jungle where, okay, just dart frogs can live here and only one, you know, every 10 feet. Like, so it's just funny, the mentality anymore. Where like, it's got to be a sterile environment with one animal, and it's got to be the size of your bedroom for a crested gecko. Like, it doesn't really make any sense in a lot of ways. And I think people are fixated on the wrong things for the wrong reasons anymore. And it's just weird, you know, it's a different time.
Yeah, I've had that conversation a lot over the years, because, you know, what would go into what would be expected out of certain people for us to be able to breed. We'd have to charge so much for the animal to compensate for the bigger cages, everything else involved. You know, honestly, like when I go through my facility right now, like I look at everything I'm doing as such an upgrade from what I started the hobby at, because, you know, every time you always upgrade what you're doing.
Yeah.
There will still be people who look at what I'm doing right now and be like, man, you're a piece of shit. You can't win, man.
Yeah, and it's all about like what feels right to you. Like, I've definitely gone a lot more into because I'm starting to breed more frogs and stuff now, that like they're more in like naturalistic settings, just because they breed better. You know what I mean? Oh, certain things breed better in naturalistic, and some breed better like in like a rain chamber type setting. And so it's yeah, I can see both sides of it. And then, you know, as keepers like we all are, like, if we're not evolving, then we're becoming dinosaurs. You know what I mean? Like, you always have to be bettering what you're doing in some aspect, whether it's your knowledge or cage setups or whatever. Like, everything's constantly evolving. We're getting better technology. I mean, you know, whenever we all started doing this, like, there wasn't even like, you know, the Wi-Fi temperature reading things where like now you can, I mean, I can check all my stuff while I'm at work, you know what I mean? Like, and see what the temperature is in any given cage. So like, we didn't have that kind of stuff back in the day. Like, so it's just, the technology is cool. And like, I think it's all going in the right direction. It's just like, you know, who's going to be guiding the ship at some point? You know what I mean? Like, I think that's the hard part. And I live in a state where there's definitely a lot more rules and regulations. And I think a lot of it is fair. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not super into venomous and crocodilians and stuff like that, but like, you know, there should be some sort of permitting system so that, you know, you just don't have little Timmy that's going to have, you know, a mamba at 15. You know what I mean? Like it kind of does help protect a little bit, but, you know, I've heard other sides of the story where it's like, you know, well, if somebody has a mamba and messes up, it's just them taking themselves out kind of thing. It's kind of like Darwinism, which, you know, that's very, very true. Like, it's probably not going to get out and hurt a bunch of people. It's just going to hurt the keeper. But it still gives us, a, you know, as reptile keepers, a bad name if something bad does happen. So it's, yeah, it's all very interesting. And it's kind of like, sometimes it's better to stay in your lane and stay out of all of the spotlight than to get involved in a lot of shit anymore.
Yeah. I don't know if this is the right way of putting it, but you know, my biggest concern is that the people that want to work with me and want to buy animals from me are always happy. You know, making sure I'm always, you know, doing right in any deal. When things go wrong, making it right. All that other noise in the hobby, people on the outside. Like I said, I don't even read the comments, man. I don't think I've only read 2 comments, and I'll never forget them. Of course, they're going to be in there forever. But yeah, man, I stay out of the comments.
Yep. Yeah, and that's honestly the best thing to do, because it's one of those things, like with anything, the more successful you get, like, you're going to get haters. If you don't get haters, you're probably not doing things correctly. You know what I mean? Like you're not, it's just one of those things. Like, it comes with the territory, and, you know, it sucks, but, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Is there stuff we should do to upgrade to look better, or do you think, you know, what we're doing as a whole is good?
I mean, there's always ways to improve everything, and, you know, it is kind of weird because I don't really look a whole lot on social media at, you know, a lot of the reptile stuff. It's kind of weird like that, but, you know, I have my interests, and like, as far as like leopard geckos go, like, I don't even look at leopard geckos on like Instagram or anything like that. Like, it's really gotten to the point where, like, I'm going to make what I like and, you know, post all that. And if people like it, they'll buy it. If they don't, then they don't. Like, I don't want to try to like make everybody happy, because you're never going to be able to, especially with like something like a leopard gecko or a ball python. Like, you're just chasing mutations. You know what I mean? Like, what's hot at the time and stuff like that. Like, I would rather just do what I do, and if they like it, they like it. If they don't, then I'm happy. You know what I mean? I would rather pull open every single tub and be like, damn, that one's really cool. And if I sell it, I sell it. If I don't, like, it's still a cool looking animal. You know what I mean? Like, so, and now with like the frog stuff that I'm doing, it gives me that like motivation to keep doing cooler stuff. And like, I work here with over 40 different species. So it's not just leopard geckos, and it's almost kind of weird, because it, like, in a way, bothers me that they're like, people are like, oh yeah, you breed leopard geckos, like, tough. Like, and I'm like, no, actually, like, I got a lot of other cool stuff. And, you know, I've probably bred close to 100 different species, and it's just one of those things where I want to constantly be bettering myself and trying to breed things that I've never bred before. Like it's just fun to me to try to figure it out.
Do you have a favorite species like of the frogs you're working with, or one you're excited to produce this year?
Like the mossy frogs are just cool. Like the call that they produce is just, if you actually scroll down a little bit on my Instagram, there should be like a blue and black looking picture that's a video, and you can actually pull up the call of a mossy frog. It's probably going to be like before all this stuff, right there on your right, the blue one, down one.
Do they only call at night, right?
Yeah, they only call it night. They're nocturnal, but they're freaking awesome. Like, and it's not like this, super shrill, like wake you up type of call. It's like a nice, soothing, chill call. So it's definitely a lot cooler than a lot of other frogs. And the other cool part is they're semi-aquatic. So like you can very easily put them in like paludarium situation, and have fish in there with them. The other cool part about that species is like you can literally have, tadpoles, baby frogs, adult frogs all in the same enclosure, and they won't hurt each other at all.
You don't have to worry about like the fish eating them or anything either, as long as they're, assuming smaller.
You don't want to have like fish that will like easily eat them. But like a lot of my setups that I had, well, like the one with the ribovi, which is the black and white mossies that you had a picture pulled up there before, in their enclosure, that's literally tadpoles, babies, and eggs all at any given time, which is pretty cool. And then I pull tadpoles like here and there, just to grow them in an off exhibit thing, basically.
Now, with those, is it pretty self-explanatory for breeding on them, or just keep them happy and they breed, or you got to actually do rain chambers for them, or?
You don't have to do rain chambers, but the setup has to be right. Like a lot of the Theloderma, which is the mossy frog like genus, they lay on wet wood. So you have to be able to recreate how to make, and it has to be above water. So you have to really recreate like an environment that they want to lay eggs. And you have to have males and females, which mossy frogs, it's very hard to find girls, because they're actually temperature sex dependent. So usually you can only get, I like Dave's like, what? The only way to really get females consistently is getting wild caught ones. So I'm actually doing a project right now where I'm trying to figure out what temperature and at what time during the tadpole stage the sex is actually determined, and I'll be able to create more females.
Do you have any guess when? Like, isn't it before they're tadpoles, or do you?
No, it's actually closer to whenever they're morphing to come out of the water. Okay. There has been scientific studies done on other frogs, especially like wood frogs in North America, and there's a species of frog in India as well that they're also temperature sex dependent. So in the tadpole stage, there's technically 40. For the most part, most people recognize 42 different stages in the tadpole development stage. The midpoint being about 26, and that's whenever back legs start growing. So before that time frame, the tadpole can be whatever temperature, and basically what they're thinking is the genetic component of the sexing happens, at that point. So before the stage 26, you're probably getting like a 50-50 ratio. after that stage, whenever they start developing back legs, if the the species most, or during the study, the species is that were temperature sex dependent, they would all turn male if they were too warm after that 26th stage. So that's what I'm kind of trying to do right now with the mossy frogs is over the course of the last, since October, I created 800 tadpoles that whenever they're only laying about 20 eggs per clutch, it's a lot of clutches. And I've separated them to do a couple different like temperature studies where one is kept at room temperature the whole time through. Another group is kept at room temperature until that 26th stage, and then I put them in a chilled water. And then I'm raising other ones fully chilled for the whole time, just to see where that temperature sex dependence actually happens.
Is there something in that study where it talks about in nature why that happens with that species?
Not really, but like the more I look into natural habitat of where mossy frogs actually are, and how long they stay tadpoles, they usually stay tadpoles 6 months to a year. And if you think about when breeding actually happens, it happens more like in the summer months whenever it's warmer. And then it actually does get pretty cold in their native environment, but it's also warm for half the year. So I think the ones that get out of the water first all end up being male, and then the ones that stay in for a little bit colder temperatures, those end up being girls. And then also, you know, because they're in the water longer, they come out of the water as a bigger froglet and stuff like that. So I think it actually makes a lot of sense that females leave the water later.
Interesting.
So how far are you on that with the 800 that's still just waiting to grow them up?
Yeah, still waiting to grow them up. And then, you know, once I grow them up, like I got to sex them at that point. So, I mean, we're still in the beginning stages of a lot of this. They're still cranking out babies though. So, or cranking out eggs, I should say. I've probably got the first like 50 of them out of the water right now. They're probably all going to be males. And then I got about 4 of them that are just ready to leave the water that did the half room temperature and then dropped to cooler temperatures at the 26th stage mark. So if those end up being girls, then we'll have our answer. So we'll see.
So, you know, you're talking about working with like 40 different species and you've probably worked with around 100, you think. Like when I think about my expansion, like, you know, we had children's pythons hatch out today. That was really exciting. We've never done that before. You know, when I jump species to species, I feel like I'm always trying to think of something that's good for the pet trade. Some of the stuff you're working with, like, you know, what is your motivation to get into the project other than just thinking it's interesting, knowing that you're going to produce something you're going to have to sell eventually?
Literally, it's like, you know, a lot of them are species that like I just think are cool. So like, if I think they're cool, hopefully other people will think they're cool, and then, you know, just producing them. So like, I'm also breeding like milk frogs and like mutation white tree frogs and stuff like that. So like, I know that those sell. You know what I mean? Like, in milk frogs, like the process is a lot quicker. I mean, you've got eggs being laid and they're hatching from the eggs within 36 hours. You can have them out of the water in 5 weeks, and I mean, big enough to sell it in like 3 to 4 weeks after that. So the turnover rate of those is just incredible. And I mean, they can have clutches of, you know, 200 to 600 at a time. So it's pretty freaking crazy. Like, you know, the amount of frogs that can be produced in a short period of time for some species. A lot of the Theloderma, they don't produce as many tadpoles, like, you know, the mossy, the curacao that are the regular mossy frogs. Like, you're averaging, I mean, I've got like one female that lays around like 15 to 18. I've got another female that lays like 20 to 24. So probably the average clutch is about 20 eggs per clutch. And they lay every 2 weeks, like religiously. and I've got 4 females, so they just crank them out. I mean, they've been breeding since October with no sign of slowing down whatsoever. You just got to keep them well fed, lots of vitamin supplementation and calcium. I think that's another thing that a lot of people don't take into account. It's not just bugs you're feeding them, it's the vitamin powder and stuff like that you're also supplementing them with, especially during breeding. Because if you don't give them that, then the tadpoles are just weak, and froglets are garbage at that point. Like, you get stuff with weak back legs and can't get out of the water and stuff like that. So it's very important, like the nutritional side of it, even just in the adults that are laying eggs.
Is that just like a lack of calcium?
A lot of times it's like lack of vitamins. It's usually vitamin A is what they're lacking if the babies are weak. I usually do a ratio of 4-to-1, like vitamins to calcium, for across the board for all the species that I work with.
Is that just somewhat the diet's a bit different than what they'd have in the wild, or a bit more?
Yeah, because if you think about it, like, no matter what we're gut loading our bugs with, like, they're just never gonna, be the same as what the insects that they get in the wild are. I mean, they did a study on dart frogs a long time ago, whenever people were having issues with like fertility and stuff like that. And the vitamin A that they found in wild dart frogs was actually so much vitamin A that we can't even reproduce it in captivity. So like, they're getting stuff like far more dense than like what we can even recreate. And that's, what was causing like a lot of the infertility and stuff like that. And then they boosted the vitamin A and a lot of the supplements, and then all of a sudden they could, get good tadpoles again. So a lot of it has to do with, diet and supplementation and stuff like that for a lot of these species. Like, if you get weak babies, it's probably due to the nutrition of the parents.
That makes sense. And, the reason I thought calcium, at least for blue tongues, that's some of the ones I've noticed that seems like if they're a little weak, their back legs don't always want to work. You also work with tree monitors too, right?
Yeah. I have yellow tree monitors. The one female is looking like she might lay some eggs again here soon. Haven't cracked the code on it yet. I got eggs about 1.5 years ago. They went bad. And then, last summer she was outside all year. And then towards the end of the season, they started breeding pretty heavy again. And I felt her belly whenever I brought her in, because I don't keep animals outside once it drops below 60, especially like the monitors and the skinks. They come inside. I felt her belly. It felt like there was about 3 marble size ovulations in there, and she resorbed and didn't get anything. So I put her outside whenever it was still a little bit cold this year. So she is getting nighttime drops like down into the low 60s, and she's starting to develop, I think, again. So hopefully we can, get some good eggs on the ground from her, and then, hatch my first tree monitors, which would be pretty fucking cool.
Well, I know a lot of people that work with tree monitors, and I feel like everyone's story is the same. Here's how I fucked up the first couple clutches, and then I figured it out.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of those weird things too, where like, it's not just like, especially down here, whenever I take them outside, like, it's not just temperature cycling, it's food cycling and getting the right combination down. And, I'm a firm believer, whenever you move animals from one location to another, it kind of takes them like a year or two to reset. And I moved from like more South Florida to the Orlando area about 2 years ago. So last year I kind of figured it was just kind of like a scratch year because, everything was just readjusting to where we were living. So this year should be better for monkey tails and for the monitors. And I've also got green tree pythons that I keep outside as well. And I mean, they've been breeding recently, which is also weird because it's cooler out. So seeing a lot of activity with that. So maybe we'll get a clutch of eggs from them too.
Have you yet to breed those outside?
The green tree pythons? No.
Yeah.
Like I've only been in Florida for 3 years. So like everything's kind of new and doing it outside for the first time. I actually want to build a large enclosure outside and breed leopard geckos and keep them in it all year round. And I think they would do all right. Like I want to do like a fucking crazy like 4 by 12 foot enclosure just so I can be like to the people that, oh, you're keeping them in a 6-quart tub, and I'll be like, oh, well, here, check this out. It's 4 by 12 with 50 of them in it or something crazy. So I think that would be pretty cool. I think they can survive out here like all year round, especially if you build them like underground, like tubes and hides and stuff like that. Like I'm pretty sure that they could live outside here all year round.
So I was talking leopard geckos with somebody, and they were telling about a study where it seemed like in the wild, a male could have a range where he could have up to like 43 females in it. So, your idea of keeping them in a larger group, you'll actually probably be very successful with that.
Yeah. I actually think if I build it big enough, you could probably put multiple males in there, which would be kind of cool. And then, it kind of started with the whole, like, are they as communal as like people that study them in the wild say? And I think they can be very communal, especially some of the like subspecies and other species of them. I think Afghanicus, which is a subspecies, is really, really social. And then the Fuscus, the ones from India, like you can keep them pretty easily together with no issues. I think a lot of times where you see like the aggression issues is we've been breeding them so long in captivity and keeping them by themselves for so long that we've probably selectively bred the ones to hate each other. You know what I mean? Like it makes a lot of sense. Like what I do is I keep siblings together for as long as possible. So even like some of my breeding groups are sisters that have been raised together forever. So they're already used to having another animal in there, and they're almost like socialized in a way, like with having another one in there instead of whenever they're 9 months to a year old, you put a male in there and they're like, holy shit, what the hell's that? Like it's a big animal that's going to eat me or something. So I've always had better luck just kind of raising them like 2 per tub, and making sure that the biggest thing is like that there's no competition for resources. So like as long as they're fed well and like they have enough hides and stuff like that, you're not going to have issues. I think the people that have issues with them, especially cohabbing, is you get an animal that like just outcompetes the other one, and there's not enough food for everybody. I think that's where a lot of the issues are.
Talking diet. So when you first started working with monkey tail skinks, what was your diet like compared to what you're doing with them now?
It's still pretty much the same, because I tried like, I worked at zoos with them well before I had them personally. So I use a lot of the same diets that like I've seen other zoos use. I actually use one of the feedings a week is Missouri tortoise chow that I wet. And then sometimes I'll put like crested gecko diet on it. Sometimes I don't. I mean, they seem to really enjoy that stuff. They hate the LS stuff, like the low starch, but they love the original stuff. So that actually cuts down on the food bill a little bit whenever you can, feed them the tortoise chow once a week instead of, $20 worth of vegetables. So it's kind of nice that way.
Are you doing a lot of greens then too, or?
It really ranges. Sometimes it'll be just greens. Sometimes it'll be We have like Aldi down here, which I'm sure some people have it all over, like in different parts of the country, which like the vegetables are usually pretty cheap. So I'll get like different squashes and carrots and zucchini and a bunch of other different stuff and kind of grind it all up and use that. They love green beans. They'll eat peas. Sometimes I'll just get like bags of mixed vegetables, like frozen, and then just thaw those out and give them that. Basically, like I don't give them a ton of fruit. Like it's probably 5 to 10% of their diet. The rest of it is just greens and vegetables and tortoise chow.
Too much fruit, give them the diarrhea, or just too much sugar?
I think it's just it would be too much sugar for them, honestly. Because in the wild, they're in the trees a lot. I think they do eat the fruit from like strangler fig, because that's where they live at in the wild, is what I've heard anyway. Is like they're really in like strangler fig trees in the Solomon Islands, because of all the crevices and stuff like that. They can hide easy, and they eat the leaves. And we the zoo that I worked at in southern Florida, they had some strangler fig trees on property, and like once a year they would definitely like fruit, and all the fruit would fall to the ground, and I'm sure that they gorge themselves on that during that time of the year.
Well, and a lot of fruit that we grow is a lot higher sugar than it would be in nature too, that doesn't always relate the best to the animals.
Yep.
Yeah, actually, we did that podcast with Johnny, and the one thing I liked about it, he talks about how skinks first come out of brumation. They're kind of scavengers. They're going to be eating bugs. Then your greenery comes in. They're going to start working on it as the season goes on. And then by the end of the season, there's a lot of fruit available. They're going to be eating a lot of fruits. I've always done a diet where I've mixed them all together, and sometimes I feel like they got a little sick of it. Mm-hmm. I think I'm actually going to stage things out like that a little bit more with the Northerns, just out of curiosity.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely makes sense. And I think like, blue tongues are slightly different, but, from what I know, like what you just said, like, it probably is a good idea where certain things are available, more plentiful during certain times of the year as well, especially for you guys as blue tongues.
Do you think that variety matters that much, or just something to mix up, Dave?
Well, I think more of the reason I bring it up is I find at certain points of the year, especially later in the year, they get a little more pickier about what they're eating. At least I get that every single year. And that's where I'm saying maybe at the end of the season, maybe adding a little more fruit to their diet compared to a steady amount all year. Maybe that'll entice them to eat a little more. But, like he said, usually I'm very low on fruits, like 10% the most. That might just be a little bit of banana, or I like using blueberries. But again, like I said, end of the year, they get picky. I start changing up the diet a lot, trying to find something to get them really interested. Next year, I'm just going to go a little more fruit, see what happens.
What do you guys do for protein? Do you feed a lot of bugs and stuff like that as well, or not really?
So I do a mix, probably more, dog food and like eggs and stuff. But we do have a dubia and stuff that we have for them.
Yeah. Like you said, eggs. I actually don't do insects at all.
Okay, nice.
What one thing at like the Asian markets by us, we can get snails pretty inexpensive. So we like to mix those in quite a bit too. That, it's a high protein and low fat usually.
Yeah, my yellow tree monitors actually love snails. It's pretty crazy.
Down by you, there's wild apple snails. Can you feed those, or probably not the best?
I probably wouldn't feed anything wild, especially snails. Like that's usually a vector for parasites and stuff like that. So I probably wouldn't feed like snails from the wild.
If you keep it outside in Florida, I don't know exactly how your caging is, but you ever thought of like a hanging garden that they just graze on through the year?
That would be kind of cool, but I think they would just go through so much that, like, I mean, I've seen one skink just devour a whole thing of hanging pothos in one sitting. So, like, it's almost one of those things. I don't think there would be enough food ever for them. And basically, like, I have caging with inside a lanai, like that we have like big pool area and everything's inside that. So it's all double contained down here, and it's yeah, it would be a little bit tough, I think, and I think they would just go through it faster than it would grow, honestly. Which sucks. I would love to be able to just be like, my dream would be to have like this huge greenhouse where like I wouldn't even have to go out there and feed them. It would just be they could just eat on their own. But I don't. I think they would just demolish everything. I mean, I don't think even pothos would grow fast enough for them to not eat all of it, especially with the size of the collection that I have right now. So
now this would be expensive, but like Blake has like those huge aviaries for his birds.
Mm-hmm.
Doing something like that where you'd actually be able to get some decent sized trees in it, maybe.
Yeah, but again, I think like they would almost just eat the leaves faster than the tree that could produce them. Like you would have to. I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen like Ron's like huge pothos that he has on his tree down Ron St. Pierre down in Florida, like that. I think they would go through that in like a week pretty easily. So like, and that probably took years to grow that kind of thing. So like, I just it would be, I think, extremely difficult to. You would need like a 20-30 foot tree for a family of them, like it, and I think they would still keep that trimmed up pretty good, probably.
Have you noticed any different like mating behavior outdoors?
Not really, because like they're almost like pretty secretive. It was nice whenever I kept them indoors, because then I could kind of keep an eye on them during the day and everything, or at night, like because they're kind of crepuscular, so like you can kind of see whenever they wake up and do the things that they do. But now that they're outside, it's a little bit harder to like to see everything that's happening all the time. But I know it's just better for the animals. They get a little bit of that UV and go through temperature changes and stuff like that. So, and they they get rained on here and there, and I just think it's just better and more natural for them in the long run. I did as much watching of them as I could while they were inside, but it's one of those things. I'd rather them be happy, and I mean, they're definitely more happy outside.
Well, it's hard. I'm sure you designed enclosures where there's stuff to keep them out of sight, so they're hide and feel secure. So it makes it harder to see breeding behavior.
Mm-hmm.
You was it Tokay geckos you're breeding outside in your lanai too?
Yes, my partner and I were outside, and there was a palmetto bug that just like went across the porch, and I was like, "Hey, we have this like male Tokay gecko in the house. Like he's hating life. He's in like a 30-gallon tank or whatever, and just dark all the time and kind of cowering in a corner." And I was like, "Why don't we just put him out here to control the bugs and stuff?" And she was like, "All right, like, why not? Like, if it gets out, it's not like it's going to be invasive. There's only one. It's not going to breed. It's a male." And literally, and I had this thing for like a year and a half, right? Never heard it Tokay ever. Like, and put it outside, and within like 2-3 nights, we just hear this Tokay, like calling a female, like trying to get a girlfriend. And after about 3 weeks of him doing this, I was like, I'm just going to get him a girlfriend at the next show. And like, because the good part about living in Florida is like you can get like wild caught tokays out of Florida like at a show for like almost nothing. You know what I mean? And it's not like these Indonesian ones that come in and half dead and stuff. So like I picked out like 2 like nice looking girls, and I was like, all right, I'm just gonna put these in random spots in the lanai. And like we have a big lanai. Like it's got like a 10,000 gallon pool in it and stuff like that. Like it's big. And I put them in, you know, different sides of the lanai and stuff. And, you know, within literally 2 days, he had both girls like in his spot, like with him. And then he picked the girl that he liked, and the other girl kind of like, you know, wasn't really interested in hanging around them anymore. And, you know, she ended up going underneath the door, and like she was on the side of the house outside of the lanai. And I was like, well, we can't have that. So like, I ended up like bringing her back in the house and putting her in one of my exoterras that I have. And she ended up going and living at Ron St. Pierre's house to, you know, help him with his tokay stuff. And, but this pair, they would always be together. And, you know, I noticed that they, meanwhile, like, you know, I never told my partner any of this about like, you know, having these 2 girls out there. Just all of a sudden he shut up, and like, she didn't notice and stuff like that. So I looked back behind, like I had like this old cage, and that's where they would hide behind, is like this one cage in the corner. And I looked back there one day, and there was eggs, and I was like, oh shit, now I'm going to have to like tell her that like, not only did I get girls, but they're freaking breeding on the porch. So, you know, she was a little ticked. Like whenever I first told her, she was like, what the hell? Like I didn't want them breeding on the porch and all this other stuff. And I was like, but like, they're so happy, like be happy for them. Like, you know, he's got his girlfriend, like they're having a little family, like everything's cool. And then, you know, the first baby hatched out, and I was like, oh shit, like hopefully this guy isn't going to get out of the lanai. So like I caught him up. And, you know, meanwhile, like this 3-month period where like, you know, the incubation and all that stuff, like, you know, he never called like in that 3 months. And I cup this baby up, and I take it in the house and put it in one of the exoterras that I have in the house. And within an hour, like the male's calling in like middle of the day. And I'm like, what the hell? Like he never calls in the middle of the day. This is weird. And then, you know, an hour or 2 later, he calls again. And I'm like, he's looking for the fucking baby. Like they're that parental that he started calling for the baby to like come back. And I literally like put the baby back out there. He shut back up. And, you know, I would go out there at night, and the parents would actually take turns with the baby. Because one parent would stay with the eggs, and then the other parent would go hunting. And literally like the baby would go hunting with whatever parent like was out hunting at the time. So like, that's just wild to me. Like we consider tokay geckos like a damn goldfish. You know what I mean? Like they're just like, you know, this cheap gecko lizard that we kind of almost view as like a throwaway pet because they're so cheap and, you know, easy to get and stuff like that. And they're probably one of the coolest like species you can actually have if you have them like free range like that. Like they have very cool social structures, and I mean the pair definitely bonded. You know, they take care of their babies real well. They protect their eggs. Just a super, super cool species. And, you know, people that have like tokays, they usually never get them that big because they're always stressed out and not eating real well and stuff like that. And whenever I had to catch that tokay back up to bring him in the house, he's a monster. Like he just has free range of any bug that he wants. Like we keep our insects, like part of our lanai is covered. So like we keep the roach colony out there and stuff like that. And he knows exactly where that is. And he just goes and eats roaches whenever he wants. He just lives his best life out there. And they're just a really, really cool species. And, you know, without living down here, I never would have thought that was possible. You know what I mean? Like just super, super cool. And it just kind of like back to the importation thing. It's like, it just sucks that some of these animals, we never get to see like their actual, like, what they do. You know what I mean? Because we have them in these enclosures, and sometimes it's not set up right, and we never get to see some of this naturalistic behavior. And like even with a tokay, like they're not probably going to show a whole lot of that, like in any sort of enclosure that we can build in a house. Like this thing's got literally this huge lanai that it just has free roam of, and you get to see its actual, between the breeding behaviors and the communications that they have and taking care of their baby and stuff like that. It's just wild, like absolutely wild.
That's we were talking to Ron, and it was a while ago, but he was talking about with baby bearded dragons in the wild. I think he was saying they were like perched up on like sticks and bushes and like small trees. And, he came back and started doing that with his practice. And at that point, they stopped nipping tails, stopped nipping feet, just more comfortable.
Yep.
And like you said, it's a lot of stuff we're working with. Like, we really simplified things in the early days of the hobby. Like, it was almost like a minimalist look at what we had to do to get this to thrive in captivity. So, like, I'll be honest with you. I've never really thought much of tokay geckos because every tokay gecko story is usually a really shitty story. That story actually makes me want a couple tokay geckos.
Right? Just let them loose in your house, and you'll love it. I promise you. Like they're super cool. They're awesome.
So when you're talking about just the parenting now, is that something that was already kind of understood in the community on how they breed them now, or is that something a little different?
I honestly don't know because I don't even talk to tokay people. Like maybe this is a thing. I know that they're very protective of their eggs and they'll bite you and stuff like that. And I mean, probably every story you've ever heard is like you don't want to get bit by them because it sucks. And I mean, you definitely don't want to get bit. But I think they're a lot more intelligent than most people give them credit for, and you definitely can tame them down too, especially if you get like younger ones. So they're definitely just a really cool species that nobody thinks about, you know what I mean? And another cool species that most people like don't have that is super cool, and now the price is actually pretty cheap on them, is keeled lizards. Like it is literally a miniature tree monitor, and they are just awesome. Like I have 2 pairs of them, and they're in mixed species exhibits as well. And literally like the pair will like go sleep together at night and then come out during the day and bask together and stuff like that. And like, it's just really cool seeing like actual like behaviors that they do. And I mean, they can be super tamed down too and be really, really awesome like pets for people. And like right now they're between 100 and 150 bucks, which is nothing. And I'm just so surprised that they're not more popular than they are, because like they're just a super, super cool lizard. And they're out during the day. They're very inquisitive. Like, they'll eat crickets and crested gecko diet. Like, so super simple to keep. Like, it's good to have a basking spot on them, but like they don't even really need it that hot. Like they're just a super cool species, and they get decent size. Like, it's just really weird that more people aren't into them. Like,
things come in waves, and some things get popular for different reasons, man. It's probably just going to take the right influencer talking about them, and suddenly everyone's going to want them, but then we'll complain about how much they cost.
Yeah, right? Because then all of a sudden the price will go up, and and it's weird because like the price of them used to be like, I think like 4 years ago they were like $2,000, and the reptile industries started breeding them and mass produced them, and now they're at a price where people can afford. And it's almost like this weird thing where like if stuff gets too cheap, everybody loses their interest in it too. So it's this weird like balance of like what price point. And like, I even hate talking about price, but like, it's almost like what price point do they become popular? And it's almost like at what price point does something become popular because it's so expensive? Like, look at the crested geckos. Like, it was absolutely insane that like lily white exantics were like $30,000 at that one show. Like,
yeah. I always talk about that. I was at that show. It was the coolest fucking experience ever, just seeing in the building. Cause I said it was like so confusing. I was set up like right at the front, and they opened the door, and like just like 5 or 10 Asians come running through with like selfie sticks, and they run right the fuck by my table. And I was like, I've never seen a show start like that before. And then I get to hear all the stories of the sales and everything else at the end of the day. And, we talk about that. Like, if you knew the Crested Gecko market, like pre-COVID, Xanthics were like $2,000 and nobody wanted to buy them. They were shooting on the project. And suddenly a few guys got them. Ron got them with Heather. And there just became this like rush of people that had this project. Like you said, I think at its peak, $37,000 on a lily white Xanthic. And I think that weekend he offered a discount if the buyer was willing to come to the show to buy. And he took all sales offline. Like I said, the marketing behind it was awesome. But no, that was one of my like favorite show experiences. It was kind of up there.
Yeah, I heard that there was actually people fighting over them, like outbidding each other at the table. Like that's like insane. Like I was like, why can't leopard geckos be like that? I'd love to, make $250,000 and just dip, like.
Well, I mean, you guys, I hate to say it, but the most interesting story that ever hit leopard geckos was the lemon frost, and we don't have to talk about that. Everybody that knows.
Yeah.
But that was the peak story for me.
I'm just glad I was retired during that whole fiasco. Like, I'm glad I didn't bid on anything and, end up with, lumps.
Yeah, well, I'll only say one more step of the story and we'll leave the rest of mystery. But, Jeff with JMG and one of his customers from, we'll just say a random country, had the conversation and they kind of agreed to go in on it. And that bid that got it up that high was between Jeff and that overseas buyer and, of course, Steve.
Yeah.
And I think when it got to, like $9,000, I think Jeff finally bowed out. And I want to say they went for $10,000 at that show. And that was a wild time, too, man. Definitely unique auction item at the time. And, it sucks the project didn't work out. It was such a unique-looking animal.
Yeah.
But, man, I guess it just wasn't meant to be.
Yep, and that's the sucky part about leopard geckos is the two most unique things, like the Enigma and the Lemon Frost, were just train fucking wrecks. Like,
I was gonna say the same thing with the Enigma, man. And the community could look past that for a while, and I know there's still some out there, but like that acceptance publicly is not what it used to be. Kind of like with the spider ball python, the jag carpet, like.
Yeah.
There is, they frown upon that nowadays. Like, if I have a spider on my table, you'll have someone come over and just call you a piece of shit at the show. Like, it's really wild.
I've seen it. There was a auction down here for at one of the shows, and I think it was for like USARK Florida, and somebody put a male spider ball python like on the silent bid auction. It went for $1, and I was like, holy shit! Like.
Yeah, I'll be honest, man. I got two still in the collection. One because it was just the coolest snake I've ever made because I never made a ball python that was like red, and this was a red animal. And the other one is just because I got to pull the other gene out of it. And unfortunately, Spider's one of the two genes. So that one's going to probably get rid of her. But that other one, that bonfire one I was talking about, I'm going to keep that thing forever, man. That was that was a cool snake.
But I mean, I think this is still true, right? That spiders usually have like the best appetites, though. They're usually like notoriously good eaters, right?
Yeah. I'm not going to use the R word anymore because I think I've used it too much in my life at this point. But I think they have a one-track mind because they're a little slow. And man, they breed so good and they eat so good, man. Like they never skip meals. And you've probably heard like the whole neurological thing is just skull development at the ear canal is where I think it's wider. They have more of a wobble where it's developed more normally. They don't have wobble.
Really? I didn't know that.
That's all it came down to. It's not the neurological. It's just skull development.
Skull development. Huh.
But no, and when it comes to like the wobble too, like don't get me wrong, I've seen some really wild looking spiders, but a lot of spider combos I've produced over the years do not have an extreme wobble.
Yep.
There's a couple that are always just a little worse than others, of course, but they have the whole wobble complex in ball pythons now. And it's like, I want to say maybe 9 different genes that are all allelic, and spider is one that's on there. And the spider ball python, I don't know if I'm giving you too much ball python information, but when you bred a spider ball python to a blackhead ball python, it made a normal looking ball python because it was allelic. And when they both toned each other down, apparently it literally made a normal snake, but there still was a degree of wobble there, and that's how you could tell it was actually a spider.
Wow.
But yeah, the wobble complex is kind of full. It's kind of the whole allele thing of ball pythons getting confusing. You guys kind of have it easy in leopard geckos. You really only have a few genes and then a lot of line bred shit you guys been working on for decades.
Yeah. I mean, you got your 3 strains of albino. You got 4 strains of snow. That 3 of them are probably the same exact thing. You got blizzard, Murphy's patternless, white and yellow, a couple different eye pigmentation traits, and I mean Enigma, lemon frost.
Did you say raptor adapter stuff?
Yeah, the raptor and aptor stuff. I mean, that that's eye pigmentation stuff to me, and that's it. Like, so it is one of those weird things where, like, whenever I say that, like, I did everything genetically that I wanted to do, like, I probably created like at least like 80 first of their kind combos in leopard geckos, and there might only be like 150. You know what I mean? So like, it's one of those things where, like, I didn't want to go chasing that after I came back again, because, like, I've already been there, done that, and it just didn't excite me anymore. And I wanted to just create things that I thought looked cool. And yeah, and the couple years that I was out of leopard geckos, like, I dabbled in ball pythons for like a year or two, and because at that point you could get single and double gene females ready to breed for like $200, and then you just get like a 6 gene male and just create a rainbow of different shit. So I just did that just to say I did, and then I was like, damn, this is really boring and really expensive, like, with rat prices. And I was even getting rats for $2 a piece, which like now, like, people would be like, what, you can get them for that cheap? Like, that'd be awesome. Like, I've heard people like spending like $7 a rat. Like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. Not going to get into that, man. It's people's willingness to spend when they need to. I'll be honest. Like, there was one year we produced so many ball pythons in such a short period of time, and there was a mouse shortage in Missouri. I had to drive all the way to Texas to buy like 2,000 live mice and drive them all the way back just to do like one solid feeding that week, kind of deal.
Jeez.
Like, it was.
Is that whenever you and Mike were doing it, and like he had like that mouse mobile thing that he hauled on the back of his like van or whatever?
I think that might have been one of the trips he took down. He took one, I took one. It was whatever it took to make things work. But yeah, when he came on that year, the whole point was, hey, let's, if we're gonna be 2 of us, let's make more. And we made more, but like, things going wrong along the way. Like, so we get this walk-in incubator full, and we ordered like 20 or 40 animal plastic racks, and we also ordered like the first run of like FB5s from Freedom Breeder, and literally both got delayed over and over and over and over and over again. So finally we get everything in. At one point we had them, like old school, like Tracy Barker, stacking them up in tubs in a corner in like a heated room because we didn't have our rack systems. So then we got them in the racks, and then we had a rodent shortage, and our colony wasn't producing enough. So now we're scrambling to find rodents everywhere. We made it work, man. And, if it wasn't for the both of us, it was probably going to be impossible, but we never went that hard again after that. Like that year, we just went a little extra. I think we might've produced that might've been like 4,500 ball pythons that year.
Wow.
But yeah, way toned down since then, man. Like, I've downsized the collection considerably over the last few years, just like really quietly releasing things in groups here just as necessary.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm honestly down to, so stupid to say, but like 360 breeder ball pythons. Jesus, but that's really like a fraction. It's a freaking fraction of what was going on.
That's still a lot of ball pythons.
It's a lot. And I'm going to downsize again this year. I think so. Literally my incubator was empty for like 2 weeks. And then like, since the first of the year, I've had like an onslaught of ovulations. I've got 34 clutches in the incubator, I want to say, and like 240 eggs, 240 something eggs. And I've got like 95 to 100 still gravid in the back that have all become gravid around the same time. So it's going to be like 600 ball pythons are going to hit the ground like within like 2 months of itself. It's going to be insane.
That's going to be crazy.
And everything else, I got a ton of Woomas in the incubator right now. We just hatched out a couple clutches of children's pythons. We're just about to get going on all the colubrids. We bred like 30 blue-tongued skinks this year, so I'm going to probably be scrambling for space to put some of this if it all happens at the same time, and I'm really concerned it's going to happen at the same time.
Yeah, that it probably is. Speaking of the hardest thing, like of you guys, I had to rewatch the ice hockey in your jock straps recently, just
Oh,
because it
you
was
didn't have
amazing.
to, buddy. You didn't have to. You couldn't help yourself. It's okay.
Being a hockey player myself, I thought that was freaking hilarious, man. For
You know,
sure.
and I bought those American flag or leg pads on Marketplace one time, and I was like, someday I'm going to do something with these because I tried playing hockey in them. It was a bitch, man. Like, you can't go back to use those pads once you've used new pads. And,
Exactly.
long story short, what the really nice thing about having Mike nearby and neighbors that are just understanding. And I live in like the middle of the woods in Missouri, but I can get on the phone with Mike and be like, "Hey, man, you want to come over and get naked on my pond and take a video?" And he's over in like 20 minutes. And like, I did that sledding one naked down the driveway one night. I literally called my redneck neighbors up. And I'm like, "Hey, I think I want to like sled naked. Can you come over?" And there's like 4 razors coming up over the hill with like blinders on. Like they were all ready to do it. So I got supportive people around me. It makes all this possible.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I miss hanging out with Mike at like reptile shows and stuff like that at Ian's stable. Like I've seen Ian do some of the wildest stuff at reptile shows, like just absolutely crazy. Like
Yeah, Northern guys were a little different, and I used to be around like JMG's table a lot back in the day at the Hamburg show and all that. And those guys are always up to some kind of crazy shit, pranking people.
yeah.
Some people just get a little more out of the shows than others.
Yep. Yeah, I was with Mike one time and we were at Ian's table and he he sold this, like, I think it was like a ball python to some guy. And he walks away with the ball python in a pillowcase, and the guy comes back like 5 minutes later, and like the snake had crapped all through the bag, right? And the guy comes up and is like, "Hey, can I get like a different pillowcase? Because like he crapped, and I wanted to clean him up a little bit." And like Ian's like just annoyed, and he's like, "All right, here, just give him the shittiest one we got." And meanwhile, like Ian just like brought in like this container of like animals, and like everything in the container was written on the lid, right? And the guy was like, "Hey, can I just have that tub?" And Ian was like, yeah, sure, here, and just like handed him the bottom of the tub, like the deep part of it. And the guy's like still standing there, kind of confused, and was like, "Well, like, can't I have the lid too?" And he was like, Jesus, like just starts like going off. And all of a sudden he pulls his fucking knife out of his pocket because the lid had all the information written on it, right? And he just takes his knife and cuts this huge hole with all the information on the lid, like out, and gave him the other piece of the lid and was like, "Here you go." And like the dude just like walked away, like, what the hell just happened?
So, I'm sure this happens everywhere, but I feel like it happened more in the north. But I'd be at like the Hamburg show or White Plains, and like some dude would walk up to your table and just pull like 4 ball pythons out of his pocket, not even in a snake bag, trying to barter with you and shit. Sometimes it'd be nice snakes. I give him credit, man. Like even back then, it'd be actually expensive animals. But yeah, the northern shows, don't get me wrong, the southeast is crazy too. I've had some wild experiences at Repticons in the southeast over the years, but the north had its own special vibe, I guess is the way I put it.
It absolutely did. Absolutely did.
Yeah, I think it was all that meth up there, buddy. That really changes things. But you get a lot of that in the southeast too, so I don't know if that's the excuse.
Yeah. Maybe it's just like people that are at reptile shows.
What up? By the way, Alex, you got any questions you got to throw in too as we're going? I don't want to hijack, buddy.
Oh no, you're good. I don't have anything super major really that we haven't touched on.
Well, so where did you say you first started, like in the hobby? Like what area?
I mean, probably like professionally. Like I started like I was still in the military, so it was like Connecticut. Like my mentor and kind of the guy that got me into leopard geckos, Alberto, he lived in New York City. And I would buy a lot of stuff off of him. And I had a house fire and I lost like most of the stuff that I bought originally. And I mean, this was back whenever I only had like 30 animals or whatever, and I really hadn't even started breeding. I think there was stuff in the incubator, but like really didn't hatch anything yet. And Alberto was really, really nice about it. And like there was a couple animals that survived, and he took them to his place and like, you know, got them back to health while like I was, you know, getting, you know, the place that I was living like remodeled and all that stuff. And he basically came to me with a proposition that he was like, hey, like if I give you the animals and you buy the racks, like we'll split the profit 50-50. And I was like, awesome, let's do it. And then we worked together for probably about 4 or 5 years. And I ended up living in New York City with him for a while at one point. And I was doing all the work on the animals because if you breed leopard geckos long enough, you start to get allergic to the mealworms. It's just something that happens. And he was getting allergic to the mealworms and couldn't work on the animals anymore. And so I was doing all the work on them. And then I ended up moving to Pennsylvania with all the animals, and we were still trying to like work as a team. But then it got to the point where like, you know, I was doing more of the work because I had to take all the pictures for the website and all that stuff. And then he was kind of still dealing with sales, but I was shipping. So like, it just got to the point where we were like, hey, why don't we just like, can I just buy you out and then, you know, do my own thing? And then whenever I did that, he ended up getting into frogs. And he still does a little bit with frogs right now, but I think he's downsizing his collection. He works out with thumbnail frogs from Colombia and like the Ophaga and a couple different species of Ophaga. And he was lucky enough to get in with Tesoro, and really at the beginning of that. And he was one of the first people that was legally allowed to import these frogs into the United States. And I mean, he was at one point selling frogs for like $2,000 a piece, which is unreal. And you know, he did that for a while, and now like he's kind of getting out of that. And I think he's actually getting into like buying and reselling like Lego sets. That's his new thing. So, you know, he's kind of getting out of animals because I think he's getting ready to relocate and move out of New York City and move to closer to where his brother is. I think his brother's in like Memphis or something like that. So I think he's taking a break from animals for a while. And, you know, I just kind of took the business, and that's whenever I started doing social media and stuff like that and getting more into the social media side back then. It was the infancy of everything. So like, you know, it was pretty easy to get like a huge following at that point because like I was the only person on YouTube doing leopard geckos, you know what I mean? So, and then, you know, being friends with Barczyk, like that helped because like I was able to like, you know, he could teach me like all the different ways to do everything and, you know, become a, like, not an influencer, but just like how to do things a little bit easier. And it was one of those things that helped out a lot. And it was, you know, really cool to be friends with him for so freaking long. Yeah, it was just cool life. I mean, I can't complain, and it's been a ride for sure. Like it's kind of weird even saying that like I've been breeding for like 20 years because like it doesn't seem that long, I guess. But you know, time flies whenever you're having fun.
Yeah, I think I started buying with the idea of breeding around like 2002, and around 2005 I started producing boas. But yeah, no, like I still feel young at heart, I guess, in the hobby. You know, I still get, you know, there's still guys that are kind of old school guys that if they're willing to sit down and talk to me, I still get, you know, fanboy like crazy. You know what I mean? Like it's still there, but
yeah,
the idea that I've been in the hobby for what now, like 23 years and 20 years of breeding really just blows my mind.
Yeah. Yeah. It's actually really fun because like I live probably 45 minutes, like depending on traffic, half an hour, 45 minutes from Ron and Heather. And it's cool to go over there and just, you know, sit on Ron's porch and let the old man talk to you a little bit about, you know, all the different shit that he's seen and done. And I mean, he's, you know, there's definitely different levels of, you know, in the herpetological, you know, realm. I mean, you got the super old school people like, you know, Crutchfield and stuff like that. And then you almost have that next generation that was, Ron St. Pierre and Kevin from Nerd and Barchek and like those guys. And then it's almost like then the next generation is like the generation that we were in, you know what I mean? And then there's even generation after us. And like, it's being in it this long, it's almost like you see the same cycle repeat all the time of like these people that get in with these fucking fantasies that they're gonna, you know, make $1 million and, be the next biggest thing. And they're around for 4 to 5 years and then you never hear from them ever again. You know what I mean? It's very rare that you get people to stay like long term, like, cause what happens is like, financially stuff starts to get tough or, problems start happening at home. I mean, it's got to be the highest divorce rate in the reptile industry because like everybody's at least gone through one wife, you know what I mean? So it's just because it's a different lifestyle. It's you never know when the next sale is going to be, especially if you do it full time. I mean, you got to prepare for whenever times are tough and whenever times are good, like not blow all your money on hookers and blow, you know what I mean? So it's a rough one out there.
No, yeah, I just, like you said, so like when I got divorced, it was a high school sweetheart kind of thing, it was my fault. I failed. But when I left, I moved in with Jeff Galewood and his father and his mom for about a year when Jeff was sick to help out. And I get there and I get, my one boa rack in the house, a couple baby racks, a few other things that I had, and then I had all the skinks downstairs. But I had a $20 bill left to my name after all the moving expenses, everything from going Buffalo to Cleveland. And I literally sent my buddy like that picture. And then I did like $5,000 at that first show that week. And it was all like, it's going to be okay, man. Just got to keep on pumping. But like you said, that's just what the hobby is sometimes. Like I've had nothing on a Friday and then like on a Saturday, just be rich again for like 3 days. So I pay all my bills.
Exactly. Right. And it's crazy. And, the other thing is like, we're all addicts at heart too, because like you need that next animal that you wanted to have or whatever. And it's, you got to end up being smart about it. But like, there's always that next project that you're going after and stuff. And I mean, especially like whenever you start looking at different species and things like that, like you can't just have one, you need at least 2 to breed them. And then, if I have a 1.1, what's, might as well have a 1.2. So it just compounds on itself all the time. And yeah, it's interesting for sure.
Yeah, no, so, as I keep on downsizing on like the ball pythons, I just kind of get to what I really want to look at, actually things I'm going to consider developing. You talk about like 1.2, whatever, but like, I'm all like, if I can get a 10 slot rack and just devote a species to this one, another 10 slot rack, devote a species to that one, like, I love all these different colubrids you can breed in the same environment. That was always one of the cool things about going to Barchek's place, especially back in the early days, is when they were like truly peaking, producing like tens of thousands of animals. But his colubrid room was just so diverse.
Yeah,
and all kept in the same settings. And like, that's kind of what I'm doing right now with like when I'm going after new things. Just I've been looking at a lot of colubrids lately, man. Like really obsessing over colubrid stuff. Not even like the coolest stuff ever. Some just like generic stuff that the hobby's had forever. But like, I haven't bred it yet.
Yep. And I think colubrids are finally starting to make a comeback. Like it's like this slow comeback where like people are, getting tired of ball pythons, but they're still snake people and they want to get into something that they had as a kid or whatever. And it's just, and honestly, I think the diversity is what really needs to come back in this hobby. Like, actually the shows that are really cool are like the Reptilian Nation shows where like he limits the amount of like ball python breeders and crested gecko breeders. And that makes it nice because then it's like a more diverse show. Like, and that's what you need. Like you don't want the, 3/4 of the show to be crested geckos and ball pythons. Cause then it just drives everything down. Like it sucks. And it's, I mean, even down here in Florida, like jumping spiders are like really popular, which is like crazy. Like I came down here and I was like, why is there 8 tables of jumping spiders and little containers to put them in and stuff like that? And it's just like, It's just something that blew up, and it's cool because it might get, you know, people in. It might be that gateway spider to like having cooler spiders. You know what I mean? So, and you need those animals that are that gateway to like the next step. But it's it kind of sucks whenever the whole show is, you know, just your normal stuff.
Yeah, you know, Ryan with Reptilian Nation, honestly, he does a great show. I started doing his years ago. I've been to Salt Lake City for his show. I did, I went all the way down to like San Antonio. I think that was like a 19-hour drive for me. You know, I've done well in every city I've gone to for him. He always gets a lot of people at the door. And like you said, there's always good diversity. He limits, you know, he doesn't want someone to oversaturate. And I think that's great. And I do think there's other shows that, you know, try a little bit, but of all the ones I've gone to, I think he's done the best at it.
Absolutely. And I mean, he did one here in Tampa that he advertised the crap out of it. And it was definitely my best show in Florida. And the only bad part was the venue made everybody sign a waiver saying that they wouldn't touch an animal or hold it or whatever, like whatever the waiver had to say. Yeah. And it took people an hour to an hour and a half to get in the door, and people still waited. It was incredible. And it's almost like it like amped the people up even more that they wanted to spend money, because like they just spent like 2 hours of their life in a line. So it was almost like this, you know, this Disney mentality where like, oh, like if I, you know, the lines are so big, so like it's got to be awesome. You know what I mean? Like it was almost like this, like even more hyped up thing than, and it was awesome. It was cool.
No, he, you know, he put on a show in Oklahoma City. I missed. I should have gone, but honestly, I was a little low on animals, and I just felt like if I went down there with what I got, I wouldn't have done well. But like, I was doing a little local show that weekend, and like, somebody at the show was like, "Yeah, my cousin in like Tulsa said there's signs all over Tulsa for this Oklahoma City show." Like, he really goes out and canvasses, and you know, I used to make fun of Repticon when they were putting those gay little picket signs in yards and shit and on the corner of like intersections, but honestly that stuff really works like they do for the gun shows.
Yeah so, and it's kind of sad because like Repticon down here now, like they don't advertise really at all, and like it's gotten to the point where like you don't even have like the best vendors in Florida going to most of them anymore, and then you get like the B vendors and the C vendors, and like before you know it, it's a freaking, it's like shit, I forgot the word of it, like a flea market. You know what I mean? Like with people with shit animals and used tanks and dirty tanks, and it's just then nobody wants to come to your show anymore. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. When I lived in Buffalo, New York, and I was doing this or trying to become full-time at this, you know, I was driving to like, I drive to Cleveland, meet up with Tim Kuppenhofer, and then drive down to like Charlotte, Raleigh, all the Tennessee shows, Atlanta. Like, it was worth driving down to those shows for Repticon. Mm-hmm. I love doing their shows, but, you know, when Ben Rennick passed away, I came out to Missouri to help with his animals, and they dropped all my tables. And like, I was like, well, I need these tables now more than ever. Can I have my tables back? And they wouldn't give me my tables back. So I had to like essentially stop doing Repticon and just never wanted to ever go back again, to be honest with you. Like I did their shows for like almost a decade.
Yeah.
And then like, they're like, no, go fuck off.
Yeah. And that's like, you can't do that as a show promoter. You know what I mean? Like, you know, take care of the people that take care of you, you know? But yeah, they definitely, Ryan puts on a good show. And then another friend of mine, another Ryan actually, he puts on a scales show. He's going to do that twice a year in West Palm, and that's a really good show too. He really puts in a lot of time and work for it, and puts on a good show too. So between those shows and like the Daytona show, like I might even just do the bigger shows down here and not even do like the smaller Repticons anymore, just because it gets to a point where it's not worth it. I mean, there was one Repticon show where like we didn't even make enough money to pay for the table and the electric, and it's just like at that point you can't lose money doing a show. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I say that about a lot of shows. Like I do a lot of show me's, and I will be honest, I actually do well at most of the show me's I do, but there's a couple I don't do well, and I just make sure not to go back again. And the way my seasons work with what I'm producing, and then of course, the summertime low, like I've definitely crafted where I'm willing to travel at certain times of the year based on where I know I can make money. But I also have an understanding that about 3 or 4 months of the year, I'm either going to stay very close to home or I'm just not going to do shows and really focus on online. Like, there's a balance to this, but like you said, man, I don't go to a show to not be able to cover my tables. Like, I'm not losing money when I leave the house.
Yeah, exactly.
But, Hamburg shows too back in the day, those lines out the door, and even like, and it's not that it was a bad show, but it was just like a gross old area, just like
It was bad. Right by the cemetery and yeah. And it was the weirdest thing because like it had the venomous too. So like one of the craziest things I ever saw was at that show where like there was a dude pushing a stroller with one hand and a baby gaboon viper in the other, and I was like, this is not okay. Like this is probably going to end really bad for somebody. So yeah, I mean.
I'll go. I was just going to say, I made a meme of the Hamburg show, and I'll send it to you after the podcast. You're going to love it. You'll totally understand because you've done the show. But, yeah, no, that show, great stories. But I think there was even somebody like, I don't know if it was like Dale or like one of the old school guys that would just like travel show to show. But I don't know if it was a Gaboon Viper or something got its tooth through the air hole on like a 6-quart container. And I heard it actually grazed his finger or got him a little bit. This was way back. I don't know if it was like, I've heard the story from a couple people, so it's either real or one person said it and got someone else to repeat it. I can't say it for sure. Yeah. But it also wouldn't surprise me at all if that actually happened at that show.
Because apparently they used to have a venomous room where you could like take the animals out. Like, and people would take out cobras and stuff like that and free handle them and like just wild. Like, no thanks, man.
Hot, buddy. That sounds like a Hamburg show. That sounds like a Northeast thing there, right? Though.
Yeah, well, Pennsylvania, because nowhere else you can have venomous up there.
So. Yeah, no, I got to experience the Columbia show in South Carolina. They had the little venomous area, and that was another Repticon story. I get all the way. We drive like 13 hours to the show, and they're all like, "We don't have tables for you," and we're like, "No, you got tables for us. You're gonna figure it out." And they walk us over to the venomous section. They're like, well, how about these? And there's like a dude like cooking sloppy joes in one table. The next table has like a bunch of dead baby iguanas with live iguanas on it. I was like, we're not fucking bending back here, buddy. You got to put us on the fucking floor. But yeah, no, it's a way. And I remember they also changed the rules in South Carolina to where the venomous section was its own section to where you can come in and do the show. We had to go like back out the front door and walk to a different part of the building to walk in, to essentially go around a curtain they put on the floor. But they wanted you to take the hallway all the way out and walk through that other door.
That's so crazy.
Yeah, the venomous thing's tough. I talk shit, but I don't think it's not for everybody. I hate that people think it can be. And I also hate the people that are a little more daring. But I'll tell you, man, like, I was 20 once. I played Russian roulette, like poking a eyelash viper that just came in. I'm a piece of shit, but I just, I was young. And that's why guys should not have things like that, man. We do really dumb stuff.
Yeah. And I think that's like, I'm all for like responsible people having it, but it's like whenever you get, I think it's a bad mix whenever it's like the influencer type thing with like, let's see if we can free handle some shit and like, it can just end bad. You know what I mean? And it's not a good look to put out there for kids and stuff like that. Like, we got to be a little bit, have some responsibility. You know what I mean?
I think the way I put it is it just plants the seed that makes it seem possible and easy sometimes.
Yeah.
But, I've been to Crutchfields. I've watched him handle his main shangs. I knew a dude with a cobra one time that you go up to the cage and knock it with a stick a couple times, call it by name, and it would hood up, and you take it right out of the cage. Like, I get it. Man, the risk. I just couldn't do it.
Yep.
I never have insurance. I always talk about that. I cannot take risks like that not having insurance. No. I got hit by a copperhead one time, and I called Dr. Warren Booth because he was the only doctor on my phone. Like, And he got me through it. But
yeah, and I think the other big thing it's going to be interesting to see is whenever the Tiger King reptile version is going to come out. It's not gonna. It's going to be interesting. Like the parts that I know, because like I was there for a filming of one of the parts, and
oh fuck, really?
oh yeah, like I was. Hopefully, I'm not on camera, but like I was definitely there for the Bill and Kathy Love party down at Crutchfield's.
Oh, I heard about that.
And it was just weird, like absolutely weird. So like we'll see how bad it affects the industry and stuff like that. So hopefully it's like not awful, but you know, who knows what's going to happen from this thing. I don't know if they're going to go after importation like you were saying, or if it's going to be, you know, the venomous or the crocodilians, or you know what they're really going to try to go after. I don't think they can just be like, oh my god, leopard geckos or the devil, like can't have them anymore. But I mean, there's probably going to be some fallout from it, I would think.
So, and thing that sucks about doing a lot of podcasts, man, every time I do an episode and there's somebody on, this always comes up in conversation. So I'm going to give you the same thing I say every time. And this is just my opinion, though. I could be right or wrong. It's going to sound very convincing. So a few different parts. Like, first off, if he came in and he did that reptile podcast and Tiger King never happened, you probably would have I didn't mean to say podcasts. I meant documentary.
Yeah.
If he did that documentary about reptiles the way he planned on it, we may never have even seen that thing. Tiger King was just special. Like that was not like like that's gonna go down as probably one of the best reality TV shows ever in a sense. Like it's up there pretty high for me.
And for it to be released at the height of COVID, so we all had to watch it. You know what I mean? Like
we all had to. And I think I've watched it like 4 times now. Every once in a while, I'm like, man, it's been a while. I should probably do it again. Make a couple memes afterwards. But so that did gain popularity for that director. And then what he did, Chim Crazy, which was based in Missouri. Now, I live in Missouri, and I haven't heard of any law changes for chimpanzee keeping or anything since that's happened. So, you know, it kind of died down. It wasn't quite Tiger King.
Yep.
I don't know if this reptile thing will just be what Tiger King was. And like you said, there may be some repercussions, but it's not like they're not always going after that shit anyways. They're going to maybe push a little harder. So I don't think there's going to be anything that's going to happen. I'll eat my words. I will say if it came out before Tiger King, nothing ever would have happened. Post Tiger King, he's a little popular now. He's got a name. We might be a little screwed, but probably not. Probably not.
Yeah, let's hope not. And hopefully people will see through the fact that I think the majority of it is going to be very staged looking, and hopefully like people will take it as that too. Because I know from what I saw being filmed, it was not scripted, but it was very planned out in a very specific way.
Acting out a scene, freestyle, personalities are good enough, they can get away with it kind of thing.
Yeah. And it's it's just interesting. And I don't know how many times it's changed trajectory of which way they want to spin it. And I mean, I'm sure they've got enough footage to do whatever the hell they want, but it's one of those things. I think it's gonna. I think originally it was supposed to be more like the book, like the Lizard King book, and then I think as it might actually save us a little bit that like that the one guy that was in Tiger King that was in the Lizard King as well, like is not going to be because like he's not going to be in it because that bridge was already burned with Tiger King. You know what I mean? So it won't be able to hold as much weight, I don't think, with some of the characters. But I mean, some of the people that are going to be in it are characters in themselves. So it could get interesting. So we'll see. I mean, I'm sure I'll watch it. That's for sure.
unless Crutchfield is giving dudes heroin, I don't think it's gonna have the same hit, buddy. I mean, here's the thing. I love Crutchfield, man. I've had nothing but good experience with the guy. I mean, I'll watch it because of him. I'll watch it twice, but I guess I'm just looking forward to figuring out what the quotes are going to be from that just carry on forever in the hobby.
Yeah.
And I'll make sure to keep them alive too for everybody if there's something good.
Yeah, and I don't think, like you said, it could ever top Tiger King. I think the people were just too polarizing. Like, you know what I mean? No offense, but like, you know, Tom is a very cool guy and stuff like that, and like, you know, the other people that are going to be in it, like the Van Nostrans and stuff like that, I just don't see it being as crazy. You know what I mean? Like, you can't have it as crazier than Tiger King. It just couldn't happen.
Like I said, I'm not rooting against this. I would love if this community had a great documentary or something came out, maybe put some eyes on it. But like you said, it's not like there's a lack of eyes on the community. I mean, you know, Miguel's taking ball pythons to Ozzy Osbourne when he's alive, and like there's always animal stuff going on. But I don't know, man. I'm just optimistic. I've met everybody in the hobby. Yeah, there's some very interesting people. There's never been a Tiger King community because I would have found it a long time ago and I'd be hanging out with it all the time.
That's true. That's true.
But, hey, Alex, you got any skink questions?
Someone asked a random one in the comments. This one's kind of odd. Which blue tongue is the fastest in a race?
Okay.
I don't think anyone's ever actually tracked any of that though.
I'm going to go based on body structure. I don't know. I think Northerns might be the fastest, to be honest with you. A little bit bigger than the Easterns, bigger legs, move a little faster. About the same, proportions are about the same. What do you guys think? It's not monkey tail, so don't even try to fucking throw that at us.
They got longer legs.
Oh, yeah. Real functional. Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, probably like one of the tree skinks would probably be faster.
I was thinking about the big six from Australia, but now we're just throwing a bunch of shit at it. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess they did say blue tongue, so, you know.
I think it'd be hard to even get them to race. You know, you could try with bribing them with food, but I could see, you know, Northerns being pretty quick. What about, so you guys are talking, you know, a lot of diversity from like a breeding standpoint. Do you think you need the diversity to be successful?
I think the thing that keeps my collection more diverse is just that I want to work with a bunch of different stuff. So that's like more of a personal thing than anything else. I mean, definitely like the frogs are a cool little thing that I didn't think would be as profitable as they are, because, you know, the cost to produce them versus how much you can get for them it's pretty incredible. But, you know, again, it's kind of for the fun of it as well. Like, it's not like I have like, you know, 10 breeder milk frogs or something like that. I literally have a male and a female, and that's all you need, because I mean, one clutch was 200 tadpoles. So it's like, you don't need a big group of them to reproduce them really well. And I mean, White's tree frogs are even crazier. I mean, you could get probably 1,000 out of one breeding. So like, it's one of those weird things where, I mean, to me, the diversity is more of like what my interests are and stuff like that. It's not really anything business related in a lot of ways. It's what's interesting to me. And usually, like, you know, you'll find people that are interested in stuff that you're interested in. So all of a sudden I've got frog people following me as well to get frogs, you know? So what do you think, Dave?
Oh, on that? Shit, that question wasn't for me, but I pretty much daydreamed my way right through that shit. I mean, I was listening to you, but I forgot the beginning part. No, I don't know. I can't say anything. I'm lost.
the diversity in your collection.
Oh, geez. Yeah, I should have. That was an easy one. Well, honestly, if you do a lot of shows, it really helps. You don't really know what species is going to be the winner. And some weekends, I might have 3 or 4 shows. I won't sell a Wuma, and then I'll have a show. I'll sell 6 Wumas. So I do think having diversity on tables good. And honestly, without diversity, I mean, I'd get bored. And, even going back to leopard geckos, you can work with one species as long as there's diversity within there. If you have a large enough color palette in that species, you can always have a wide range of customers. So, there's really a lot of different ways you can go about it, but I get bored and I just want a lot. I need different things to look at other than color.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
But so leopard geckos, do you think, and this is going to be a weird question, by the way.
All right.
Do you think Cryptosporidium has made it to where that species has maintained at higher prices because of collection crashes over the years?
I actually don't think that there's been collection crashes like people think.
I've heard some back in the day stories.
Yeah, I mean, definitely back in the day, but I think so. I recently did a deep dive into the whole crypto situation. So there's a bunch of different species of crypto, and even a lot of the labs that you send fecals in to test them, they won't tell you what species of crypto it actually is, because it's basically like a DNA thing, but they're only looking for the genus crypto. They're not looking for the species part of it. So you could get serpentis or varanid. Those are the 2 major ones that affect reptiles, but you could also get there's rat cryptos, and there's mammalian and cryptos and bird cryptos and all these different types of crypto that they're not harmful for, let's say a rat crypto is not harmful for like a snake that ate the rat that had crypto. Like, it might pass through the snake, and if you just so happen to send in that sample, it's going to pop hot for crypto. But because you don't know what species of crypto it is, like, you think that this animal is going to die from crypto, but in reality, it's not. And the more research that has been done on crypto, the more even scientists have realized that they know nothing. So the biggest thing that, even in the zoo community, because like now that testing is getting even more like advanced and stuff like that, we're finding out that everything has something, you know what I mean? So it's almost like, how deep down the rabbit hole do you want to go? And at the end of the day, the biggest things are keeping the stress to a minimum and keeping the conditions right for the animal to live. Like, any of the variants outside of those 2 things, like you stress the animal, like with either breeding or conditions or something like that, it can flare up an immune response, and then the animal can't handle what is going on. So I think with improvements in how we keep everything and the right parameters and diet and all that stuff, we're seeing less like collection crashes, if that makes sense. I mean, even in green tree pythons with Nido and stuff like that, we're seeing less crashes of collections because of we're keeping them better. You know what I mean? So like, animals can live with Nido for a long freaking time. And even Nido has, multiple different types of Nido just within the same genus. So, and that's what they're finding out too, is like, some will kill a snake instantly, but there's other types of Nido that they can live with forever. So I think the rabbit hole that you start going down with all these like diseases and pathogens and stuff like that is a very, very slippery slope, where a lot of people don't understand a lot of it. And having, my vet tech background and my zoo background, and talking to pathologists and talking to some of the best veterinarians in the country, especially whenever it comes to exotics, is like, we really know nothing. I mean, a lot of these animals have, specialized bacterias and stuff like that in their stomach to digest food, and that's all natural to them. But, you put that bacteria in another species, and all of a sudden the species just dies. You know what I mean? So like, there's a lot that we don't understand, and I think it's one of those things that that is very true with this and other things. Is it's almost like the more you know, the more you realize that you don't know anything. And definitely whenever it comes to crypto and Nido and all these other viruses and stuff like that, like there's a lot that we don't know, and we're just in the infancy of it. And the more we test and the more we look into a lot of this stuff, like a lot more animals are infected than we know, but that doesn't mean that they're going to die. You know what I mean? Especially a lot of zoos that are working on SSP animals that are critically endangered and stuff like that. It's like, at what point, like with like blue iguanas, for instance, that there's a very, very small population, and you got to try to rebound that population from this tiny, island of, a few animals. Like, at what point is it okay to like breed like a crypto positive animal to a non-crypto positive animal to try to recreate more life? You know what I mean? And I think that's some of the, questions that like zoos that are trying to, basically protect certain species have to ask themselves. Is like, at what point is like stuff okay, and like what can you get away with, and what's going to be healthy, and what's okay to still breed. And like, because a lot of times back in the day, especially in zoos, if an animal tested positive for crypto, they just euthanized it. And then they were finding that there was different types of rodent crypto that would cause the animal to pop hot, and it wasn't even for crypto serpensis, so it wouldn't have killed the animal in the first place. It would have just passed through. So it's one of those things that could be a multi-part podcast just all in itself, of each individual type of thing that we're worried about in this hobby, as far as like the zoonotic, well, not zoonotic side, but the different bacteria and pathogens and stuff that these animals can get.
Yeah, and I think every community has its scare. I just leopard geckos, I've always known cryptosporidium's connected to them. It's probably the biggest thing you got to worry about. You talk Nido, then you're talking green tree pythons, carpet python community, boa community. Right now it's the arena virus. It used to be IBD. And when we find these things out, a lot of us think it's going to be the end of the world. But like you said, a lot of these animals had it without us realizing it. A lot of them do have the ability to live with it. Yes, stressors will bring it out of them in a negative way. And I'm sure at some point we will be able to breed it out. Like I said, there was times in boas, I remember everyone said it's going to be over. We're going to lose them all. There was even the scare in Burmese pythons years ago. I can't remember what that was with them. It might have been an IBD also. Like I said, it's never so catastrophic you lose them all, but I have heard some pretty horrific stories across the border about every species on, when you have to actually throw in the towel.
Yep.
That was depressing.
So someone asked if about breeding for size, whether larger, like geckos, for example. Are you doing any of that?
Talking about moose? You got some moose blood?
I used to actually have Moose's full brother.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, his name was Mammoth. So, all right. So here is my politically correct answer for the giant gene. All right. I worked with original giants whenever they first came out. And it is not, there isn't a super form. It's not like a incomplete dominant that in that aspect where you have, a normal looking one, one that's slightly bigger, and then this like super massive animal. I believe that it's a line bred thing. And that's me working on it for years. And it's one of those things that I actually stopped labeling my stuff giant years ago, because I thought that it was one of these things that was kind of a way to sell geckos, but not be like perfectly honest about it in a way. And it's just one of those things. Like you have a 6'5" human and a 6'5" human, they're going to have 6'5" plus babies. You know what I mean? The original giants were a much lankier animal. And as they got bigger, they filled out a little bit more. A lot of them didn't live as long. And if it was like this purely genetic thing, we would literally have massive animals of every single genetic. And still to this day, the biggest animals are always just these Tremper albinos. And once you start adding other genes to it, like you're not going to see like a 180-gram raptor. You know what I mean? It's just not going to happen. Like the biggest ones have always been just regular Tremper albinos. And if it was as simple as, a recessive trait or an incomplete dominant trait, you would literally see like every single mutation would have this massive animal. And it just is not the case. Like, and there's also a lot of other factors where, how were they raised and the conditions and all that stuff. Like, growth can be stunted by how you're feeding them, what you're feeding them, vitamin supplementation. So the whole giant thing to me, like it kind of sucks, but like whenever people come up to my table and they're like, "Do you got giants?" I'm like, I like almost cringe inside because I'm like, "Oh, you're one of those people." And it's just like, so like to me, just because I've been doing this for so long, it's that and the Diablo Blancos. Like, God damn it, Ron Tremper, for making such a cool name that everybody literally wants this Diablo Blanco. And
was that solid white one with like the black eyes?
The red eyes, yeah. It was a basically like a Tremper Eclipse, so Raptor Blizzard. And the bad part is that Blizzard also has an eye pigmentation gene to it. So you could actually have the eye pigmentation from the Blizzard in the first place, and then it doesn't actually have the Eclipse gene in it, which would cause people to get pretty ticked off because it doesn't have the actual genes that it should have in it.
So way back, this had to be like in the mid 2000s, late 2000s. I had one of those coming on trade for some boas. And I didn't know shit about it. So I was like, you know what? I was at Tinley. I was like, I'll go to JMG's table. I had never met them before, but I was like, they have leopard geckos. They'll let me know.
Yeah.
And I showed him that animal, and Senior looks at it. And he's like, it's a white gecko. And then he leans back in his chair and just completely ignores me standing there. So I just walked away. Yeah, that's funny because you brought that up. I haven't thought about that in forever. But I think I traded like some Motley boas for it or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting what has been, popular over the years, and not just leopard geckos, but like ball pythons. What was popular in boas? What was popular in now crested geckos that we have all these morphs and stuff like that. So, it's interesting to watch the trends and what was popular, what isn't popular, and what continues to hold its value.
No, I always like to compare species to species just on where their development is to kind of almost give hope to what people are working with. And like I always talk about like northern blue tongue skinks, like two good comparisons, honestly, crested geckos. Line bred traits, certain colors can be popular for a little while. Values will go up, they'll go down based on certain colors, so on and so forth. And even with leopard geckos, we joked around, you have minimal genes, but it looks like you guys have hundreds of actual mutations where, again, it's just line bred traits. So, the skinks, honestly, I think in like 15, 20 years, skinks are going to be like at another level in the hobby as long as we have more people working with them. But I think they have the same potential all these other ones do. They're just way behind on line breeding.
Yeah. And it's one of those weird things that, like, I mean, shit, it was Barchek, at least 10 years ago that was like, oh, blue tongues are going to be the next ball python. And like, it's weird that we've been saying this for years, but it just hasn't happened yet. And
the blood python's going to be the next ball python.
That's the thing. It's like, it's going to be really hard to dethrone the king that is ball pythons, just because They're so easy. Everybody wants them. There's so many mutations. Like it's just so hard to, and they're easy. They're pet rocks. I mean, and they're easy to breed for the most part, as long as you can kind of figure out what the hell to do.
It's like it's the cool kid species, man. And there's always new investors that are willing to invest in them because there's always a new color that's worth investing in to completely do everything all over again. And repeat and repeat. And we've done it for 30 years. And man, there's always something else somebody is willing to throw a lot of money at.
And it's the best pyramid scheme that has ever been created.
Yeah, and there's a truth there, and it's nice to be at the top, man. If you know someone at the top, they're living large. But yeah, no, it's just such a volatile market, man. I always say like ball pythons like day trading, where a lot of other species are like owning stock. Like, you know, it's going to be consistent. You know, maybe every couple of years it'll go up like 5% if you're lucky, but it's always going to stay consistent.
Yep.
Now, do you think part of ball pythons, you know, the false dream was part of the issue?
Can I just say one thing? It's not a false dream because a lot of people do well with them.
Yep.
But we need people to fail for us to succeed in ball pythons. If everyone who bought a ball python succeeded, that market would have crashed a long time ago. But no, I still know people coming in. You know, Bob Vu is really one of the best examples, man. Like, if you watched him even the last 10 years of the hobby, like 10 years ago, he was at Repticon in Atlanta with deli cups on a table. And a couple years later, he had display cases. And now you look at him, he's one of the top contenders in the industry when it comes to breeding ball pythons, at least when it comes to relevant stuff. So you can do it. Just expect for things to suck for a little while and don't give up at the 5-year mark, because it's the 5-year mark that typically makes or breaks people.
I mean, when did Justin really come into it? That was probably like
early
15 years ago, right? Buddy. What?
It was like around 2002, 2003. Like he was an early 2000s guy, but like you either knew him or you didn't. He invested in lavender albino, did a breeding loan with Peacock with a pied, got double heads, started making lavender pieds. I want to say lavender pieds back then were like $40,000 or $70,000 if you had them.
Yeah.
So early on he did that, and then it you know, clown combos, everyone was kind of stuck in like pastel, lesser, and spider clown combos, and then he did the fire. Then he did the leopard, which was awesome because everybody already loved blade clowns. Now you had a consistent blade clown. Then I think his next big hit was it might have been the Mojave GHI clown. And then he did the Batman stuff. And then at that point, it rolled.
Just kept going.
Yeah, and with him too, like, you know, I always say, like, he had all the same ingredients everybody else had. Like, when everyone was dumping their red stripes, he was over here working on the Pompeii. Like, you know, you don't always have to go after, like, the most expensive animals to make something relevant in the hobby. A few years ago, now things have changed. Everyone's kind of got wise. But, and he's also marketing, man. He's a great marketer. He went to school for marketing. Like, there were just a lot of aspects about his business. Go back and find his early YouTube videos, man. He's wearing braces, glasses, and he's got melamine racks behind him. Like, he was doing it, and people might not have been watching him for all I know. So, you know, he consistently stuck it out over the years. I don't know if you remember a lot of ball python stuff, but do you remember the Ball Street Journal?
No.
That was a Justin thing. He did the Ball Street Journal where we do like reports on animals, talk about different genes. Like, he's always had little shticks in the hobby. And then eventually, like, you know, he made a couple animals that just were really special and went a direction a lot of people didn't think. And once he figured that out, man, he's been unstoppable.
Yep. And I mean, he's probably one of the biggest success stories of it. I mean,
honestly, he probably is. You know, I do love the OG stories, by the way, but like he, again, you always make, I won't say exactly what he sold it for, but like if I made the first Pompeii and I used black pastel, which was $50, and red stripe that no one wanted, and yellow belly that was $50, clown that was $100, and spot nose, which a lot of people hated spot nose, but that's how you got to Pompeii. Really cheap ingredients. I think he sold one of those animals north of $20,000 when he first produced it. If I made that snake back then, I would have been like, 3,000 sounds cool. 4,000 would have been nice. But the way I put it is, he challenged the market and he found people willing, and that set what the market was.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing that he has going for him as well is like, he's almost the person that sets the trend. You know what I mean? Like, whatever he's working on is what's hot. And if you don't have that, like, you're behind. You know what I mean? And I think that's how you stay ahead. You know what I mean? Is if you can consistently set the trend, and that's what, like, I've tried to do with leopard geckos over the years, is like, you know, don't be the follower that tries to create everything that people already did. You know, that's not how you get ahead. It's the people that you create shit and then make everybody else want it. That's where the marketing and the business comes into play. Is like, if you can do that, then you're going to be in good shape.
No, and at different points in the industry, like, the good old days when you could be like a P-Call and have pieds and albino boas on your table, and Aztec or Arabesque boas and IMG boas, and then you go through the rest of the show and nobody had anything. You had to buy those things for him. Same thing with what Ralph Davis did early on in the day. Now, like you said, it's setting trends, and I don't know, like leopard geckos, like you said, like I love the bold stripe stuff. Like if I was ever going to get back in, I've always thought bold stripes are the most attractive out of everything. I feel like there was the most you could do with it, and that would probably be what I'd want to work with. Your stuff, like you said, you're in my algorithm, man, and I check your shit out all the time. I'm just not willing to buy another leopard gecko right now.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. I had them. I only bred them one time when I was in North Carolina. But I had them set up. And, man, I went in there one day, and, like, this male was just tearing this female apart. So I got in between it and put my finger in his mouth. Still to this day, one of the worst reptile bites I've ever had. Like,
a leopard gecko has been your worst.
Yeah, dude, the way he got me in a spot, I'm a pussy, but he got me in a spot, man, and he just kept on chomping harder and harder. I thought he was going to break his jaw in half, man, like the way he was biting on me, but he let go eventually.
Yeah.
But no, I like the species. I just, there's so many of them. And
Yeah.
I'd want to buy the best of a group from somebody, like, really just try to create something I would like to work with. But, it just hasn't happened yet, man. I guess I'm going to have to get a small collection dumped on me, and then I might go all in, to be honest with you.
Yep. That's fair. And I think it's kind of interesting because, like, a lot of people in this industry, like, there's definitely snake people and there's definitely lizard people. And, you almost fall into a specific category at some point. And, like the only snakes that I got are like my green tree pythons because they're just different anyway. But like, I'm not really a snake person. You know what I mean? They just don't interest me like stuff with legs does. So, and it just, we all have different tastes, you know what I mean? And that's what makes this industry so great is like, there's such a variety of stuff that you can keep and have fun with. And, it's really cool.
So sure, we're going to be calling in a minute. So, one thing I was really curious about, because, you talk about, you produce your monkey tails, you think the babies probably stay with the parents for a good year. What's your process when it comes to selling? Like, is it a real hands-on experience with the buyer? Like, you're not just like posting on Morph Market, getting a message. I'm sure maybe sometime, but like, what's the process of actually going to you to buy one of these animals?
So I think this is going to be really crazy to a lot of people, but I might not ever sell one.
That's fair, man. That's fair.
I mean, I just literally love them so much, and it would probably be a while before I would sell any of them, and I probably wouldn't sell a single individual. It would have to be a pair, and obviously unrelated. And I mean, that wouldn't be that difficult to do because like anything the same age would probably be unrelated. But I can't honestly sit here and tell you that like I would ever sell one. I mean, if I start selling them, it would probably be because like I was selling the whole collection of them, and it's just one of those things where, they're kind of like my pets. Like I have some tarantulas as well. I collect pokies, and the Postisthalaria genus basically, and I have all but 2 of them right now. And it's just one of those things. I want to have a female of every single one in the genus, and they're in cool tarantula crib setups, and they're all around like our TV in our living room. And I mean, they're impressive, cool looking spiders. And I mean, the one is as big as my hand, and I mean, she's a monster, and they're just super cool, and they're just our pets. Like we don't ever intend on breeding them, and I think that sometimes, like as breeders, we kind of forget that like originally, like this started off as having a pet, and then it turned into something a little bit crazier. So there's definitely animals in my collection that are more pets, and if they breed, they breed. If they don't, like I'm fine with that too. I obviously want to be able to reproduce anything that I keep, but at the same time, like some of them are just pets. Like it's not on a commercial scale like the leopard geckos are. And I always kind of joke with people that the leopard geckos are how I make enough money to, basically curb the addiction that I have with everything else, where I can use the leopard gecko money to buy the cool fancy toys and shit like that. So and then if they breed, they breed. And, now I'm having a lot more fun with the frogs. I really haven't even put the leopard geckos together yet, which is, I'm really late. So, I mean, this season might kind of suck for leopard geckos just because, like, I just didn't really have it in me. Like, I still have a lot from last year, and, I want to find them homes too. And it's one of those things. You don't have to go balls to the wall every year. I'm still going to, try to breed certain things that'll, continue the projects a little bit further. But like, if I don't breed them this year, I'm also okay with that. I mean, you kind of have to test the waters on, certain things, and sometimes the market just isn't there. So it's like, why put all this energy into producing 1,000 leopard geckos whenever, I can produce 400 of them and have all this other time to produce frogs that I really like, and, can boost like the people wanting frogs. Like mossy frogs are one of the coolest frogs that there is. And like, they're so underrated. And if I could like, create more awareness for the species, and more people get into them, that's just another species that more people are into. And we don't get ourselves pigeonholed into, the big 5 species that everybody has. I think the more diverse of a collection like we have at shows, like you're saying, that just opens up the door to more possibilities for people to have as pets. And, maybe spark their interest in getting into something different. Definitely, like as a YouTube personality back in the day, I mean, I didn't realize the impact that I had doing that until later on. Like, I never monetized it, so I never got any. I have not received a single dollar from anything that I did on YouTube, and I never did it for that. So that's weird.
Yeah, it's my house.
No, that's my house.
Oh, it's your house. Shit, are you burned down?
I hope not. It went off though, so maybe it was just triggered by dust or something like that.
Is that how fire detectors work, buddy?
Yeah, well, I mean, it would have still been going off, I think, if there was something bad. So maybe just got to replace a battery or something. Yeah. I'm sure if there's an issue, my partner will come get me. So like I was saying, like, with the YouTube stuff, like, meeting people years later that, watched my YouTube and got into geckos, and then that turned into them opening their own pet stores, and like that stuff happened. Like there's a pet store down here, Imperial Reptiles, that like he got involved with it by watching my YouTube stuff, and now he owns a pet store. And like that's the kind of impact that you have like later on that you don't realize that you're doing whenever you're doing it. You know what I mean? And that's more of what like I'm proud of more than anything I really ever did in leopard geckos was like the impact that I could have later on. And I think even more so now is like, like I did what I did with leopard geckos and, I'm still breeding them and stuff like that. But like, I'll always be like, one of the best that there was in it. And everything now is just like extra stuff on top of it. You know what I mean? And like, I would rather, you know, inspire people to do some other stuff and, not just focus on one species and be more well-rounded, herp keeper and, really do things that might make a bigger impact later down the road, like with species that actually need help. You know what I mean? Because like a lot of this stuff is a gateway to other things. And I think the more that we can get people into this hobby and then, have them do other things, like the better. It's almost kind of like what happened with Jaws, the movie, where like before Jaws, like nobody gave a shit about sharks. You know what I mean? And from that movie, like so much research has been done because people got into sharks and started doing studies on sharks and really wanting to know more about sharks. And I think the more we can do that in the reptile community and really get people on a scientific level really looking at all this stuff, that's only going to help us down the road. You know what I mean? Like, we don't need to be the stupid influencers that, kill iguanas for the hell of it. Like, let's be people that actually like show what these animals are and can do and how cool they are. You know what I mean?
No, I think the hobby's come a long way. And, when I look at influencers, at least the ones I pay attention now, I mean, they're sending positive messages out there. These are people, like you said, they almost like learned under Barcheck in a way, kind of helped them out in the early days. Yeah, I don't know, man. I also don't pay a lot of attention to what's going on around me most of the time. I'm going to be honest with you. I might be bullshitting you again. I don't know.
Yeah. And there's definitely good influencers out there for sure. I mean, I think it's more of these influencers that are the shock and awe people that like they're shock and awful. You know what I mean? So, but there's definitely some good influencers out there as well. And, hopefully like they can help point all this in the right direction as well.
I always say, I feel like the community is always moving in the right direction. Even when there's a little chaos, if you look back at what it was before to what it is now, like it's just a different game. It's better top to bottom. The products are better. The care is better. Like, you got to take it for what it is.
Yep, absolutely.
So I guess my final question for the fourth time.
Okay.
Did you ever get to meet Lizard Lover?
Who's Lizard Lover?
I'll get the fuck out of here, man. How do you not know who Lizard Lover is?
What? Well, who's Lizard Lover?
Did you ever buy the Herpers DVDs with like Dave Kaufman back in the day?
No.
I'm gonna send you some more stuff, man. Very fascinating gentleman. He had monkey tails, and man, he was like the star of the show. He was a reality TV show guy. Like,
really?
He was Tiger King, but not quite Tiger King. Not a degenerate by any means. Man, I can't believe you don't know who Lizard Lover is.
No, you're gonna have to send me these things.
Oh, jeez. All right, well, I'm done with you. Go ahead, Alex.
So, looking in the future of the hobby, what's something you want to be known for in the next 5 years?
Oh, known for in the next 5 years.
The man with 150 monkey tail skinks?
I mean, maybe that'd be kind of cool. Honestly, like I said, like it's I feel like I did a lot early in my career, and it's almost like I think I want to be known for more than just leopard geckos at the end of the day. Because it's one, like, I don't want to be like pigeonholed into any like category. You know what I mean? I don't want to be an influencer. I don't want to be a leopard gecko, just leopard gecko breeder. Like, I want to be a well-rounded, like herper. You know what I mean? Like that, has done many different species and can contribute to, what I really would have loved to do was be, highly involved in breeding of endangered animals in a zoo setting. And the more I was in a zoo setting, the more I realized that they don't even want that, because of, there's only so much limited space in zoos. You know what I mean? So they can't produce it on the level that I would probably be able to produce it. And that's fine too. And I think that, at the end of the day, what I want to give my talent to is, maybe even teaching other people how to, breed certain species and stuff like that. Cause like, it's one of those weird things where like, it's just something that comes easy to me, and I don't know why or anything like that. And like, there's just those certain people that, they work with a species and they can just do it. You know what I mean? And I think, the more that I work with different things, and, it just all kind of ties together. And I don't even know if I want to be known for anything. I guess it's kind of like a weird thing where you start off your career wanting to make a difference in some way or be known for something. And then at some point in your career, you're just like, I don't really care. You know what I mean? Like you especially if you get to that point where people know who you are and stuff like that. Like it's one of those things. Like you just want to be a regular person. You know what I mean? Like you just want to have conversations about reptiles just like this, where, and not have any, preconceived judgments or anything like that. And just be able to talk reptiles, you know what I mean? And expand other people's knowledge and expand your own knowledge. And I guess, it's one of those things that life humbles you over the years, and you really, sometimes have to take a step back to see what really matters. You know what I mean? And it's one of those things where like, we're really close with Barczyk, and, after his passing, it just sucks because like, it was weird. Cause like, it wasn't like, we were talking about reptiles all the time. Like it was just, we were two dudes that just talked, you know what I mean? And we were just friends, and he just so happened to be like who he was. And, I'm very grateful that I was able to just be a friend, you know what I mean? Like, and never wanted anything from him. I got to do some cool shit like with him. And it's, it's one of those things that like, if I could have one thing that like, in the next 5 years, like it would have been to like hang out with him for another 5 years. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just weird, like not having him around, if that makes sense. Cause like, yeah.
Yeah, no, Brian was always, I was lucky enough. I got to know Brian, when I used to play hockey in Michigan, he'd come out to my games, go to his house. I helped drive his animals out to Pomona a couple times, set me up with like a behind the scenes tour at the LA Zoo and the Reptile House. Like, always a great guy. His passing sucked, but I will say, like, I almost feel bad because like it wasn't for any reason, but like we just didn't talk as much as we did.
Mm-hmm.
And that was on me. I just kind of stopped talking to a lot of people all at once. And then when he got sick, I honestly felt too guilty. I think I just sent like one message, just unsupportive. But yeah, just, you never really know when you're going to lose somebody. And, in this hobby, man, like some of the older guys are aging out, and man, we lose a lot of young guys too.
Yeah. And I mean, it's since coming down here, like, I've definitely, talked with Crutchfield and, been to his place multiple times. And, we're kind of doing the yellow tree monitors together, like with his animals. And, it sucks because like, a lot of these people with so much knowledge are going to age out. And like, is that knowledge going to be passed to the next generation? And, even Ron St. Pierre, like he's still got a long way to go. Like but like he has so much information that like I love vending next to him just so I can sit there and talk to him the whole time, because like to me, like it's just cool. You know what I mean? Because like the stories that he can tell you of shit that he's seen and gone through. And I mean, it's just a really cool thing to just sit there and listen to the old guys. You know what I mean? And eventually we're all going to be the old guys talking to the young pups. And, you know, it's just, yeah, it is what it is, you know?
Yeah, I think I've always been very motivated to get some of the older people in the hobby on the podcast or in any podcast over the years. Those have always been some of my favorite episodes, and even like you talking about Ron. I think me and Ron had our first podcast probably about 6 years ago, and I hit him up I was like, "Hey, do you want to come on this podcast?" He's like, "Fuck yeah, I'll come on this podcast. I love that podcast." I was like, "Oh man, I didn't know people even watch this thing."
Yeah.
And man, we talked for man, it might have been 3 hours and 45 minutes in that podcast. We didn't shut the fuck up. And I think anytime I've ever done one with Ron, it could just be a whole new series of stories you never even heard before.
Yep. And he's seen some shit. So it's really cool. And his knowledge is incredible. I mean, what they do with, keeping everything outside all year round is just awesome. It really is. And to be able to see it and see what they do. And I mean, it's very inspiring, honestly, because, coming from up north, we have 3-4 months out of the year where we can have our animals outside for, the whole time. And it's just so cool being down here and being able to experiment with new ways of doing things and expanding that knowledge base.
Yeah, no, for sure, man. Well, Alex, I'll hand it over.
Well, thank you for coming out. I appreciate your guys' night. If anyone's interested in something from you, best place is Instagram to reach out to.
Both my Instagram and my Facebook business page are linked. So if you message me on either one, it goes to the other one. So hit me up at Sasobek Reptiles on pretty much anything. I don't read the YouTube comments or anything like that. So Instagram or Facebook is probably best. And then I'll get back to you as soon as I can.
All right, well, thanks again. You guys take